Well, that would have been a little bit smoother had the advert not popped up on the stream and just kind of thrown us all for a bit of a loop there. That was almost good. Hopefully the audio is now loud enough as well and everybody can hear us.
It looks like it's reasonable levels on the monitor there.
Yes,
that looks like semi-sane.
But what's coming into that and going through
the
is
that all different?
Is sometimes different.
Well,
Plus,
fingers crossed.
I mean, what's going into OBS is about -10 off 0. So
We'll call that a win.
Yeah, that
Sean's
should be
looking
about
at us
right.
disapprovingly right now, so
All the others should be okay. But yeah, that seems reasonable. Yolanda, if you could pop the... I mean, listening to it on that again isn't going to help because that's pre a bunch of lift that I've put into the Atom as well. So, but if you could put the chat up on the stream, or from the stream onto the TV... Hey, there we go. Yeah.
Sound is good, very good, according to Matthew, so we'll call that a win. Go team! It only took us 2 minutes this time, not 20. So.
And there was no echo, and honestly, if we hadn't been thrown for a bit of a loop by that advert coming in on NCS, I would have been fine, because everything would have gone bang, 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 bang. But never mind, we're here now.
And I'm doing more CAD.
Yes, we are going to try and do another bit of CAD, and primarily that's because we still don't have enough PLA to print out our new brackets. We still have the original bracket, and we need to make another one. Well, we need to make an adjusted one, and then a second one with some adjustments as well. But
so instead, for today, until we can print those off,
we are working on this. This is one of the intercoolers off the kit car. In fact, this is the passenger side one. Yes, so it will be, if you imagine this is the car.
Is that not the driver's side one?
Nope. That is the
Because I thought the boost...
That's the passenger side
went
one.
into the boot.
Because it comes across the back, goes through into here, and then it comes,
then
out,
comes
the front,
out the top and into
and
the...
returns back into the bay.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, this one has the sensor on, which is on the very last bit.
Which we believe is a temperature sensor, so that the ECU knows how hot the boost is.
I thought it was pressure.
Bugger.
Yeah.
Either way.
Tell you what, whilst you're explaining what we're going to do in the CAD,
yeah.
I'm going to look up what the part number is.
Fair enough. So, the basic idea is...
You can't take it away from me while I'm
that's a
looking
good
for
point.
the
Yeah,
part
you need the
number.
part number, don't you? Go me.
I'm not that good.
Being all clever.
Right.
So, the idea is, these are mounted inside the side pods at the side of the car, he says, just after saying they're in the side pods. I'm clever. So anyway, these are at the side of the car, just in front of the engine bay, in front of the rear wheels, where we have the trailing arm mount.
Pressure. It's a map sensor.
It is a pressure sensor.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Which makes sense because it's come through all of the cooling and will have changed pressure. So this is the last point of measurement before it hits.
See, I would have thought that the map sensor would have been in the manifold just by convention. Like it's effectively equivalent. There's one tube in between.
There's very little difference, and if it's easier to service there, it's easier to service there.
True.
So yes, so this is the map sensor which comes in, and this is the outlet side of the intercooler.
Cool.
And more convenient than that, even, it is exactly the same one on the A6, which is where these intercoolers came from, as it is on our TT, which is extremely convenient.
So we're using A6 diesel intercoolers because they're symmetrical. The inlet and outlet on each side of the car are actually complete mirror images of each other, almost perfectly, which makes it a lot easier for us to design brackets and mounts and everything for it, rather than the ones off of the TT, which, like on one side, one of the outlets was coming directly out the side or something weird.
Yeah, basically on the TT one, it comes in down the side and back out directly, and on the other side, it's more like this, where it's a very, very asymmetric, and it comes in one side and out on a different plane. So
two different intercoolers, kind of a pain. So we've gone with these ones, which are a perfect mirror image of each other, which has made everything a lot nicer for us. Now, if you imagine the camera up in the top of the room here, the main camera, if you imagine that's looking directly down the car at the intercooler, like perfectly in line with the car, the intercooler isn't actually mounted like this. It's mounted a bit more like that, give or take.
So it's...
Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong side. That would be the driver's side.
So it is this side forward.
Yeah, it's...
And then tipped back. So if it's like you're looking at it basically like that kind of angle.
You hold that there for a sec.
In top cam.
Yeah. So that's roughly the angle that the intercooler is mounted relative to the front of the car. And we've got a mouth a bit further forward, which is not directly either in front of the car to it, that way toward the front of the car, or that way in front of the intercooler, like out of the car slightly. So we've got a mouth, like give or take up here somewhere, and unfortunately, my right hand is right inside the pit. But we've got a mouth roughly up here, and we need to make a duct that runs from here down to the mouth of the intercooler. Now, the easiest way to do this would be the way that we know how to do it, which is we get some sheet metal, we cut it all up, and we just beat it into shape.
Yeah.
But I've got to be honest, I quite like this CAD stuff, even though I'm terrible at it. And
Suffice to say, you
honestly,
like a challenge.
I like a bit of a challenge. I like a bit of CAD stuff, but also there's a bit of a marketing angle to it. We kind of want to get in on some of that 3D printing traffic on YouTube.
Yeah, it is a good market.
Yeah.
It's very popular.
Well,
and the more you can add in,
yeah, that's a good dollar.
It would be really convenient to get a bit of that traffic in to try and boost the watch time. Plus, it is quite cool trying to bring in as many different technologies as we can.
Yeah, I mean,
I think the only thing we haven't got anywhere on that car, at least that we've done, is like TIG welding. That's the main thing, and we're just going to ignore fiberglass and carbon fiber and like composites for a little while.
Well, to be fair, hang on though, we wanted to do composites as well.
Yes.
Like the whole thing of this was okay. Well, can we like try a bunch of stuff, because it's partly. I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, we want to build a car, but we're not doing like. There's a whole bunch of different things going into it.
I'm gonna go through some of my thought process.
Yeah, okay,
because
cool.
originally I was pushing pretty hard to be like, oh, carbon would be amazing. We can totally do carbon stuff, and we can totally do carbon stuff. However, it takes a lot of time to do that, and this project's already been going for 3 years, and I have other projects in mind, and I'm also not getting any younger. Damn it. So, in order to speed the process up somewhat on this one, because we do want to try and drive it. It'd be nice to drive it this year. I don't know whether it will, but it'd be nice to drive it next year, if nothing else. So yeah, we need to get the bodywork done on the car. And originally, like, carbon would have been awesome, and we were going to do a carbon floor, but that's extremely expensive. To get pre-made carbon honeycomb floor is about $1,000 a square meter, which is a lot more than I was expecting.
I was stunned when I found that out.
I was expecting in the hundreds, definitely. Yeah. I was expecting like a good sort of, an 8x4 sheet of that stuff. I was expecting to be in the hundreds of dollars, but not in. Well, an 8x4 sheet would be the better part of about $4,000. Yeah, certainly with shipping. Even in smaller pieces, which wouldn't be ideal for us.
Yeah, the plan for the carbon was actually just for the floor, because we're going to be.
Well, no, we scaled it back to just be the floor.
Yeah, we scaled it back to just the floor for practicality.
And then it was going to be composite bodywork because it was easier to work with moulding and everything else. So then I looked through the ART stuff and like, that's amazing, but that's also a lot of moulding.
The floor for a long time was supposed to be a honeycomb, because partly what we're going for is we want to have low pressure under the car, which means I'm not sure if I can trust just like regular old fiberglass under there.
Yeah.
Against the kind of suction forces that we're kind of hoping that we may get in the happy path, but also we're going to be like standing in this thing.
Yeah,
as we're getting into it, and also on the side pods especially, which we're expecting to some extent to wind up being a step.
Yeah.
Off the side of the car, the little.
Which I have added in some extra support in some bits as a foot step in, because you cannot get in without stepping on part of the side pod.
So I feel like
long legs. Don't work.
Yeah, I feel like the amount of plastic that would have been needed, or anything else that would have been needed to get that strength on the floor, we actually would have had real weight savings going to a honeycomb down there. Sorry, I'm only saying this because Winged One has specifically called us out against, like, if you're using carbon, use it somewhere better than plastic. And our imagining it would be.
Yes. But actually,
but all that money is just.
For the amount we were going to be using, the weight saving wasn't that much, and going even for fiberglass over aluminium or fiberglass over steel, it just wasn't going to be a big enough win for the amount of time, effort, and money to make it work. So we kind of abandoned that idea. Even doing aluminium bodywork would have been really nice, but don't have a TIG welder yet, so we can't join any panels together. I don't know if you've seen the Macro Machines channel. I would fully recommend checking that out, but he's building an all aluminium bodied boat tail speedster on a custom built chassis with I think it's an XK120 or an XK140 straight 6 engine block, which he's then mated through a homemade adapter onto a Ford transmission, which is just wild. Yeah, have a look at that one. That's pretty interesting. So that would have been difficult to make it without having the MIG welder without having a TIG welder and also being proficient.
Yeah, without
TIG
knowing how to
welding,
use
which-
TIG welders. Challenge
Yeah,
one,
yes.
£450 price tag for a cheap, crappy TIG welder.
Yes, and really you want to start a bit higher if you're going to do something decent. So
Well,
you're probably looking at 600 to 800 for a decent TIG welder, for a reasonable entry-level MIG welder, plus another gas bottle to go along with it, because it doesn't use the CO2 argon mix that we've got on the
Oh, not for aluminium. It doesn't. No, it's CO2
Nope.
for aluminium.
CO2 for aluminium. So it's one and another thing that we're just stacking up and stacking up. So we're going to go with steel because the weight savings aren't good enough. It'll be thin enough, and we can work it, and we can make it work.
The weight savings would have been good, but
yeah, but we just
for the body. Yeah,
for the body.
my
Yeah,
bad.
yeah.
Sorry, my head was still on the floor.
No. So the floor is now. I've as a few of you will have no doubt seen, when I built the floor out of plywood just to kind of get an idea of the shape and the size and a few other bits and pieces to make sure that it would work, I got some... in fact, I even checked when I went to B&Q to make sure that the wood that I picked up was flat.
Yeah.
And it took nearly 2 weeks for it to be banana shaped. It's
horrendous. It
horrendous.
worked so badly, it was unreal, yeah.
But we've got enough fixing points on the bottom of the car that it makes it flat. It's just not happy about it.
It just twists it back.
Yeah, it just twists it and forces it back in. So it keeps it flat enough so we can stick with that. So what I'm going to use instead, and I'm hoping to buy this week, next week, is some phenolic plywood, which is 9mm resin impregnated plywood. And that will be way more stable, so there won't be any water able to get into it. I'm also going to get what was the other thing I was going to put on? I was going to get some additional resin and just do a thin coat of resin across the whole body of it as well, just to be sure that it's not going to get any water in it. Obviously, wherever we cut it, the edges aren't probably going to have been fully pre-pregged with the resin, so we do need to kind of seal those anyway. So I'm just going to cover the whole thing once it's been cut to size and put on, and that should stay flat because that is like trailer plywood and the like hexaboard, the buffalo board that they use for flight cases. That's really stable, so that's what we're going to be using for that. And with the number of fixings I've ended up putting in to make the plywood work as a template, we can use that and we can still get a really nice flat floor across the bottom, so that will all work. But yes, so there was a lot of things we were trying to incorporate into this project. And to say that we'd maybe bitten off a little bit more than we could chew is to say the entire project was more than we were capable of when we started.
Yeah, anyone who's ever heard the term scope creep? Yeah.
Yeah. The project creep is real.
It started out really innocent. It was just, we'll just go grab this chassis on eBay. We'll figure out what to do with it later. Like, we didn't have a plan on day zero. We were genuinely decided, screw it, we'll figure out an engine later. And we got it back.
Actually, yeah, it's probably worthwhile just because this is going to be a bit of like fudgy work to try and get this all set up. The only reason this happened was because I saw this on Unfinished Project UK on Facebook, and someone had listed this yellow, never been finished, never been built, part welded up frame on eBay. And people kind of went, look at that, that looks terrible. Like, that does look terrible, but it's got potential. And I half-heartedly sent it to Chris and was like, hey, look, we should just buy this. It's really cheap. And we went, that would be a funny thing to do.
That'd be stupid. Let's do it.
And we ignored the problem for 6 weeks. And for six days even. And when we got to the end of the auction, it was still going. It had about 8 hours left on it, and Chris was at work, and I went, how do you fancy travelling to Norfolk after work, and we can go and buy this chassis, like it's still £250. And we did. And all of the parts that it came with were useless, bar some bonnet pins, and next to useless.
I think we've kept an oil cooler.
Which is now in the SD1.
Oh, is that the one that's in the Rover?
The one that's in the
cool.
Rover. Yep. So we have used something that we got out of it. So if nothing else, we've spent £250 on an oil cooler
and a chassis,
and
of which we've kept what, like 30%, if that.
Yeah, basically. So not a great investment. So that's why we ended up with the car that we did, and we started going down that route. We literally didn't have a plan. We filmed the second episode going, well, look at what we've got here, and a bunch of engine. Actually, no, I think episode 3 was when we looked at engine choices, and we literally did not know what engine we were going to use at the start of that episode. And we kind of went through and figured out all of the options.
Yeah.
And I still would have loved to have put a V8 in it. I think one of the
Honestly, it probably would have fit in the end.
yeah, totally, 100%.
Like
The main reason
we
we
ruled out a
weren't-
V8 in the front because we thought
Oh,
it would be
God.
too wide.
No, it wasn't even too wide.
We thought the headers would catch the upper rails.
Yeah, but then we could have just custom made headers, but we weren't looking at custom making any.
Or we could have custom made upper rails, but it's like, no. What was it? Modifying the upper forward chassis arms would have been way too much work.
that
Also,
was-
Yola's throwing shade in chat at us. It's really scope creep if you don't start with a defined scope. Well, the
that's-
scope was we're not rebuilding 70%
Yes.
of the
Yeah,
chassis.
the scope was we're not going to cut the chassis apart just to fit an engine in.
Yeah.
And we're not going to cut apart the front of the chassis. And if we're going to cut apart the chassis, the only thing we're going to do is cut the back off and extend backwards, which we stuck with for probably about 9 months. And then we cut the floor. Actually, no, and then we cut the front of the car off to do the front suspension.
I just
And
want
then
to
we
be
cut
clear,
the
the front
floor
didn't
out.
fall off.
No, it was
It
not.
was designed very well.
Hey, it's not even in a different environment yet. It's still in the backyard. And then we cut the floor out, and then we cut the tunnel out. And then we put the floor back in, and we've now put the tunnel back in. We actually have a picture coming up of the new tunnel kind of cover that's going to be going in soon. That's while it's still on the spit, because the next episode on the car is it going on our homemade spit that you might have seen us build on Instagram. I might have to have
Yeah,
a
I think
quick
I've
look for
posted
that.
on Discord a couple of times and
Yeah.
a few bits and pieces, yeah.
So yeah, there's a few interesting bits coming with that. But it is one of those, no, that'd be ridiculous to cut the whole front of the car apart just to fit an engine in. So we didn't go with a straight 6 out of like a Beamer 2.8 straight 6 or something. We didn't go with a V8 because we didn't want to cut the top apart and
To
have to
widen
make
it,
the whole thing
yeah.
wider. We've made the chassis
Yeah.
literally
Basically,
30% wider than it would have originally been.
all of the decisions that we made to save ourselves effort earlier on
Yeah.
have
Ballooned.
not
Yeah.
done that,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Although to be fair, there were a few things that we did actually properly just straight up screw up. We ruled out a lot of the common sense, sensible engine options. We
Yes.
ignored all of the
MR2.
various different MR2 engines because they've done quite a lot. We
Yeah.
ignored a lot of VW engines because they've done a lot.
Yeah.
We ignored a
We
lot of
did
Ford
deli-
engines
yeah.
because they've done a lot.
Yeah, we did
Um,
deliberately go for something that was interesting and not a common thing to put in.
Yeah.
And even the common ones that would have gone in the front, they wouldn't have gone in the back because they're longitudinally mounted, things like the Pinto and the Crossflow and things like
Yeah.
that. So that wouldn't have worked anyway. But we then,
Not with that attitude.
not with that attitude, but then all of the other traditionally mid-mounted engines like K series, MR2, 1GSE. I want to say it's a 1GSE. Could
For
be
a
wrong.
lot now.
MR2.
I think
I want to say
not
it's the
sure.
1GSE. I could bring up the episode.
What's the
where we
4H
listed it.
from? Because that's one that we were looking at using. Or, well, looking at, we considered it very briefly. Is the 4AGE?
Yeah, that is. Yeah,
That's
that's,
the MR2,
that
isn't it?
is. Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, so we made ourselves problems and
Many problems.
and also made ourselves a lot of convenience because we didn't have an MR2 to measure anything up from. So a lot of the convenience in going with the 20 valve was there was one in the drive and we could
Yeah.
just go and take measurements. And as it turned out, the chassis rail width of the engine mounts in the A3 and the TT platform and that whole sort of Mark IV Golf platform
was fairly similar to the width of
within
the...
an inch.
Yeah.
Like it was so close as to be.
Yeah.
It was just, well, obviously this seems perfect. It'll be dead easy. This would be so much easier.
Naively, yeah, it'll fit straight in the back of the chassis.
Yeah.
Just, no.
And then we lengthened the chassis, and then we had to lengthen the chassis again. And then we had to lengthen the chassis more so we could fit a bumper and exhaust
Yeah.
and everything. Yeah.
What
So-
I think my favourite thing is, though, as much as we've added so much length to the back of the chassis to fit the engine, transmission, suspension, exhaust. Aero, etc., we've taken basically nothing off the front. All of the space that was in the front,
Yeah.
right, it's now just this big box of air.
Actually, no. We've reduced the original engine bay capacity with
Yeah, we
my
shrunk the
feet.
bay.
Because we put the pedal
Yeah,
box
true.
forwards a little bit, and that kicked out
Yeah.
into the engine bay.
But
so
the front of the car, if you go from what would have been the firewall forward to the front bounds, if anything, I
Yeah.
think it's actually got longer on the front as well. Where we've added the front structure for the bumper and everything because we're closing in the whole front of the car.
Bear with
Not just going open
calculating.
wheel. Caller, please hold.
Your call is important to us.
Just imagining Aid's vision now, just a little spinning beach ball.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
straight
think-
in. Yeah.
we are probably about 6 inches longer overall, because our radiator mount that we built, that kind of is the all-encompassing thing.
Yeah, I think the front of the radiator section is about where the front used to be.
That's actually slightly shorter than the original front section, because that also rakes forward like this, and the radiator sits backwards in the original. So at the top, excuse me, at the top it's a little bit longer, but the bottom would have been a lot longer to accommodate the bottom of the radiator.
I'm really relieved.
So if you put that in, and then the new bumper on the front, we're probably no more than about 6 inches longer.
Yeah.
What I'll do is I will measure it for next week's live stream and see how wrong I was.
I'm really relieved now, because I've just seen Aid roll up, which means he wasn't here earlier when we talked about how much TIG machines cost. He would inevitably have gone, no, not even remotely right.
Not even remotely right. Aid, what does a half decent TIG machine cost for us, like a starting point? Not the cheapest on the block.
The cheapest that we won't hate.
But yeah, something that will run off a 13 amp socket, basically, because we can't put a 16 amp in. We've got the biggest MIG machine that we can without going to a 16 amp commando.
And we're eating fuse like they made a candy.
And yeah, we're popping those every now and again, which ain't great. But actually, to be fair, most of the ones we're popping are in the extensions downstream where we have other tools running as well. So it could be, if it was just the welder, we'd probably get away with it. But by the time we've got...
Oh, no, because we popped fuse in the welder's own plug.
Oh, yeah, like a few times, definitely, yeah. But yeah, so there's a bunch of extra expense. But to get back onto the point that I made
we'll get there eventually.
We were trying to do a lot of cool things, and ultimately... scope creep has kind of taken over, and yeah, as Yolanda pointed out in chat, it's not quite scope creep when your scope is as open-ended as ours was.
No scope.
But yeah, we had a few ground rules, and we basically just threw them out the window instantly, or not even instantly. We gradually threw them away one at a time, going, but I mean, we've come this far, like the sunk cost fallacy. Maybe that's what the car should be called, the PedalBox sunk cost fallacy.
I think it needs something a bit catchier, but I'm feeling it as a starting
SCF.
point. Yeah.
SCF's a pretty catchy name right there. The GT SCF, the Grand Tour. It's not that much of a Grand Tour. It's got no luggage space.
It's not very grand, really.
Yeah, it's not grand. It's not comfortable.
I wouldn't want to go touring in it, especially.
Nope. No, the trailer we can call the Grand Tourer. No, it's probably
the Grand Trailer.
Probably the Grand Trailer. Yeah, that would work. But anyway, so we tried to put a lot of stuff in. So we're trying to rein in a few other things and keep it in the project. And the 3D printing we've seen as being not quite a one solution fixes every problem kind of affair. Because there's a lot of things that we've gone, oh, we could do that. And actually we found a much simpler way to do it without going through the rigmarole of printing and doing revisions.
There's been a whole bunch of stuff that we've looked at in the past, like stuff that we thought we'd need to get machined up. Like a while ago I made drawings. I never actually sent them to you, sorry. But we made drawings a while ago for some of the suspension adapters that we thought we'd need. Yeah. And then we just ended up not needing them. We just redesigned our rear suspension so that we didn't need the adapters made up. Yeah, and the only things we need on the front are the little inserts into the top of the hubs, and conveniently I've been gifted access to a lathe from Ignition, which is very convenient, so Colin's just like, yeah, just use the lathe, it'll be fine. So you'll break the lathe.
I can't break that lathe. That lathe, that's a serious bit of lathe.
Yeah.
He got rid of the smaller one, and the smaller one was a 3-phase. And there's a Bridgeport next to it. So like,
I noticed you explicitly mentioned you've been given access to the lathe, not to the Bridgeport.
I haven't asked. I haven't needed it for anything. I mean, you should always use the Bridgeport.
Also, Winged One, we have the engine bay in the front. It's currently full of PedalBox and steering rack, and it's going to be full of radiator duct, and it's full of fuel cell. Yeah. There's not going to be any room in the front for luggage.
Yeah, to be fair, one of the reasons that we ended up moving the PedalBox forward slightly is because we mounted the seats slightly too far forward in inverted commas, but they're not really. It's
really more that Adrian's too tall to fit in a seat inside that cabin.
We had to move the seat further forward so that I could sit when it was right back, and Chris could also reach when it was right the way forward, which compromised a bit, but it actually gives a space probably 300mm, 12-inch or so deep, and it's drivable for me. Like, I wouldn't want to drive it aggressively on track, but I can feasibly drive it with that kind of space in, and you could put like tools and some luggage and bits and pieces in. However, one of the things that I want to add on to the very back of the car before we build the diffuser is a couple of 2" by 2" box section pieces just underneath the rear chassis rails that we can use to mount a toolbox holder like they do for Drag Week in America. They either have a trailer on the back or they just have a toolbox that you just kind of slot into the back and load all your stuff on, and then when you get to the track it's got legs and you drop the legs down, lock them off and just drive the car away, which is really, really convenient. And I think that's the solution to the track day problem of not being able to take tools and stuff, because those ones, they have a toolbox in the middle and normally a spare set of like drag radials or the set of drag radials on the side. So there's a couple of ways and means that we can get around that. But that's like the future goal, and the only thing that needs to be added in is these 2 little pieces of box section that will fit in and have holes and covers on so that we can just slide into it later. It might want a brace to the roll cage, but I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue, really, depending on how much force it is. But, I mean, how much weight can you really put in a toolbox? Damn.
Yeah, chrome vanadium ain't light.
Yeah, chrome vanadium's heavy, especially when you have a big collection of it. How is CAD going?
I've made a thing that, like, topologically is a donut, which is the right shape.
Right. Let's see.
Yeah, the main hassle we have is this eternal problem. Like, so we've got this is very roughly the shape of the duct that we need. The squarer looking hole on this end is where the intercooler fits up against, and on this side is the throat that comes in from the outside of the car. Now the tricky part is this plane that the throat fits onto, I haven't yet worked out a way to put this plane in the right place. So the 2 openings are the right shape, or at least so close to the right shape that I can't see the error. Like they're close enough.
So the front intake I deliberately made vertical. Like where it joins in from the kind of scoop on the side of the car as it comes along, I was like, that needs to be vertical for no other reason than it makes it easier to work from and gives us a solid, not solid,
if I remember
a known plane of reference. Like that was, I deliberately did that.
The tricky part is though, I think it's vertical, but I think it's swept. It's not like leaning back, like reclined back along the car, but I think it is swept.
Yeah,
back
it's not perpendicular. It's not
that's
perpendicular to the chassis, but yeah, it is. It's at least one of the 3 possible axes it could be tipped in is dead straight. So that was a big starting point, because if you don't have something flat like that, it becomes very difficult to print because you still need a flat face to start from. So that was kind of start from there, and we can print up off that into anything we want outside of that.
Yeah. So the idea for this would be we'd basically print it like that way up. Like we'd start at that end and just.
I thought you'd go the other way up, but I mean
either way, like it's.
Yeah, there are, as it happens, 2 completely flat faces because the other one is actually no, it's not quite flat where it touches onto the intercooler. Because where the
I was going to put it right up to the front edge of the core,
so so top edge of the core will be there, but a small piece that comes over the top.
Yeah, we'll go this way, print it, and then where the mouth hits here, we'll also put a little flange that just sits over the core.
And it just seals the very top so it doesn't blow out. I mean, blowing air over the top of this wouldn't hurt because it's still going to cool the very top fins up here, but the more we can direct through the middle where the ducts are, the better.
We've detected a nerd in chat. Ronald Reagan's identified my window manager just from the status bar.
That's amazing.
Yes, I am using i3.
Let me actually.
Not that I'm really like using i3 right now, but yeah. So yeah, the really tricky part is getting this plane in the right spot, positioned the right distance off of the front of the intercooler, and angled to the right, like offsets in all the various different axes. Because we've got the intercooler is, if I remember right, it is horizontal across the bottom, but it is leaning back in the car.
Yes. And
swept back from toward the outside.
Correct.
So the only thing that is like aligned to the car's coordinate system is the bottom. And the bottom is flat. But apart from that, nothing else is vertical or horizontal.
Yeah. Well, top and bottom by default.
Well, obviously both. Yeah, but I mean, like on your 3 axes of rotation, it's leaning back. It's swept back. But it's at least not that way as well to make it worse.
I completely forgot I needed to send aid stickers.
Sorry, I'm just going to
been
pick my
2
jaw off the
weeks.
floor because
Yeah.
Adrian forgot something. That doesn't really happen.
I'm
very often.
normally much better than that. Hang on, I'm gonna right.
Are you literally going to do?
I'm gonna email Aid now to make sure that I get the.
Right, hang on. I know a sticker printing shop down in Pembrokeshire. We can just email them an order.
Like,
Just
can you
send a logo.
print
to
us 1,000. Send
Yeah.
them to Aid. Aid, can you send us like 990?
Can you take some down with you?
I could actually. I'm hoping to go down to Pembrokeshire this.
Yeah,
like,
once it
on-
all kind of opens up a bit, I'll just send you down with some. It'll be faster.
No,
than
I'm
the
taking
post.
the Beamer down this weekend. Because I got to get that back to Sam
Yeah.
so that he can
So
use it for work. So.
Yeah, the Beamer is back alive. Hang on.
Hang on, none of these people know the Beamer, by
Yeah.
the way. Just to
So, ooh, my bad. There we go. So there is a E92 coupe BMW that Chris's brother Sam, who you will have seen. No, you won't. You will
the
have
episode
seen
hasn't
in the,
gone yet. You'll see him.
You've seen him in the teardown episode of the 2600 engine,
Yes,
helping
he
strip
co-starred
that
in
down.
Yeah.
So he's had perhaps some of the worst luck with cars I have ever seen
Oh, it
from a
gets better.
single human being.
I'll wait until you're done because there's more.
So while he was in Reading for a while, he had a Toledo that gave him some grief, but ultimately it was okay.
The Toledo came after. The first car he had in Reading was the Red Square, the big Volvo.
Yes, so he had a Volvo V70?
Or
was it an old
940?
No, it was 950. It was the touring car one. It wasn't 940. It was after the 940. It was
the last of the 3-digit Volvo
which is
wagons.
the 950, 850,
Whichever.
Yeah, whichever one it
Front
was.
wheel drive, so it would have been an
Yeah.
8, I think.
Yeah.
Because the 9s, I think, were rear wheel
They were.
drive.
Yeah,
Anyway.
so there was a red 850, and that died by
I can't remember what the problem was
means.
with that.
Yeah,
It was such a cheap car that we didn't really care when it broke. We just
Yeah.
threw it away, and he got a little BMW 316 compact.
316 Ti, so it had a
Yeah.
couple of the funky suspension components on from the M Sport cars, so it was lovely, and it died when.
No, that didn't kill
Well,
it.
no, that didn't kill it, but it
But that
definitely
happened.
It died, and it also shed a good chunk of
Yeah.
wheel one day when driving down the motorway and just launched this away.
Yeah, he went out to
So-
start it one morning. I'm not sure if it was to take it to work or whatever, but he went out to start it one morning, and for whatever reason, the engine had seized. Just overnight. That was it.
Yes,
Couldn't turn
that was it. It didn't crank. It didn't do anything, did it?
Nope. And it's like we put it in gear and tried to push it.
It did
It
nothing.
just completely locks up.
So that killed that one. Then there
Yeah.
was the Toledo.
Then the Toledo, yeah.
The Toledo was good, but still had some issues, and eventually Greg bought that. He then had.
And Greg actually, it was perfect for
It
Greg.
was perfect for
Oh,
Greg.
it was
yeah,
amazing
it
for
was-
him.
Yeah.
I think Sam got rid of it because he just wanted something a little bit, like a little nicer, and I can't.
Yeah.
Or did he get rid of it because he got all the TFs?
He
Just started hoarding MGTFs.
I can't remember whether he got. I think he got the first TF at the same time as he had the Toledo because it was comedy gold, mid-engine, fun little car.
Yeah.
Great second little thing, and it was actually good enough. It needed a head gasket, which is pretty standard.
Which
but
is why
like-
he got it for 300 quid.
Yeah,
So,
it was dirt cheap because it needed a head
No
gasket.
issue.
So it had the MLS pulled out, the
a pie and blue gasket put
Yes,
in.
and it
he
was
then beat
golden.
the snot out of it
Yeah.
for years, and it was amazing.
Um,
And unfortunately, just this year,
yes,
both
it's finally
front
done.
and rear subframes rusted out.
Yeah.
It's failed its MOT.
He had another.
horribly.
He had
so
another
that's gone.
TF because that was a 1.6. So then he got a 1.8, which was
Slower.
it was the slower, worse 1.8 over the 1.6.
Well, to be fair, the 1.8 is more powerful than a 1.6, so we reckon the 1.6 had been messed about with.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so then he had the 1.8,
Yeah.
which died
Blew
for
a
reasons.
gasket.
That was it. It blew a head gasket and then multiple other things afterwards, despite
Yeah.
having been promised that the head gasket had been fixed.
Yeah, but the guy who did it, he said, "Oh yeah, it's just had the head gasket done a couple of weeks ago. We didn't want to put any of that weird aftermarket crap in. We just put, we put a proper factory MLS in." I'm like,
Oh no,
That's-
that's awful.
"That's the problem.
Yeah.
You don't do that."
Yeah, you do put the aftermarket one in.
Yeah. So it ate a head gasket in a couple of months.
I think that was a garage looking for extra work when the MLS
Possibly,
would eventually go and they'd bring it back.
Yeah, just
They'd be
hoping,
like,
yeah, we'll
"Oh,
have
I
another
dunno,
one."
Yeah, just like keep cranking them out because they're not a hard in inverted commas job.
They're tricky in a TF because you're in the back of the car. It's not.
Yeah,
fun.
but it's like it's head off. It's if you're adept at doing them, which
Which
yeah.
hopefully they are in
Yeah.
the garage. Yeah.
they're not as much of a problem as
Yeah.
other things. And yeah, if you're looking for easy work, just keep putting bad ones in. I
Yeah,
guess.
keep putting MLS gaskets in case here, you'll have work forever.
Yeah. So he had that, and he went through a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
So eventually,
Yeah.
oh god, what did he
then
have?
went. Oh,
What did he
I
have
can't remember
most
what he went in
recently?
between. He was using a Volvo T5 for a little while, an S70 T5, a Gen 1,
Yes.
like the proper turbo brick.
Not the red one. The red one
Not the
was
red
put
one.
out to pasture at
Being
this
gone.
point.
So the parents had a quarter million mile Volvo T5, which obviously was flawless because it's a Volvo.
Yeah.
And he romped around in that for a while, and the turbo blew up. And then we replaced the turbo.
Yeah.
Or sorry, we got a Holsit 221 to throw in it. And the idea was, I'd looked around some, like you can get replacement turbos, million mile turbos on eBay for buttons that have been taken off parted out cars and stuff. We were like, we don't really trust them. Can we get a new turbo? Mitsubishi do in fact still make the TD04 16T. I think it's a 16T that goes on T5, whatever it was. They do still make them. They cost knocking on the door of $1,000. We're like, no way. But there's a Holsit turbo called the HE221W that's a TD04 pattern turbo, and it's the same. No, I'm going to mangle some of my turbo terminology here, but it's compatible with it because it uses like the same turbine wheel size and a few other bits and pieces. It's bolt-in compatible with the original turbo on the Volvo. So the idea is you leave your exhaust manifold and everything and the turbo hot side on the car. You take the compressor side out and you take the whole core out of the Volvo turbo. You just remove all of the original Mitsubishi turbo and leave the exhaust housing on. You take the new exhaust housing off of your new Holsit and you bolt it into the Volvo exhaust manifold. Everything's easy, wonderful, happy days. That didn't work out. We've got it was a weird parts bin T5 that doesn't fit the 221, which was super annoying because we went like there's 4 separate sources that we all confirmed with. Stav text on it. I've literally watched a video of Stav pulling
Look, we know
pulling a
works.
16T off of one of these.
We know it works, and yet in front of you, looking at the car, nothing matches up.
Yeah, so
that
our
was
Volvo
weird.
had the wrong exhaust housing, and unfortunately, like Sam needed the car back on the road, we couldn't screw around. We just got another Volvo turbo off the internet. Yeah. And then a little while later, I can't remember what the next.
Oh, sorry,
thing
hang on,
was.
wait. So in the middle of this, he also had a GT86 as well while he was working.
Yeah.
So he got a GT86 and was doing well in that, and that was fine. That was his daily, and everything was good. And then it got crashed into.
Yes.
And then after it was crashed into, the repair was terrible, so it went back again to be looked at yet again and have all of the work fixed a second time. And then it was hit by a truck. And
oh no, the truck was the main.
Oh, the truck was the main one.
Was the bad one. The fun one is when he took it into Toyota to get it dealt with for the repair. Toyota themselves mismatched the paint color on the respray.
Yeah, we have to assume that it was handed off to somebody else to do because
no, it was done by FRF. It was an in-house thing. It was if it was Toyota's. I mean, obviously it's a franchise dealership.
Yeah,
kind of deal,
right? Yeah, it's not
still
Toyota, but it is Toyota ultimately responsible for it.
So that was fun. But the 86 basically was just like a continuous source of cool. I've just launched another set of brake discs all around. That'll be another however many £100. So yeah, that was a bit of a drag on him, and there's other reasons why that wasn't a great thing as it turns out. To be fair, the car mechanically was pretty good.
Sorry, just as a very quick aside, I have emailed you. So send me your address. I will put some in the post, and I will put some in Chris's hand to take down, just to make sure that we get it. And I'll also have your address for future as well. But I've sent it to the Hotmail address. Sorry,
the 86, to its credit, was actually a fairly decent car. It was probably not the right thing for Sam to have, given where he was at, but it was decent enough. Yeah. But he did have a run of bad luck with it, in so much as it got crashed into by a lorry.
Yeah.
The company that
while it was parked
at his work.
At work.
He then the manufacturer repaired it badly. Also, it went as a claim on his insurance. On his insurance, he eventually argued it back. Yeah. But then when he finished his policy, they're like, "No, we want more money." Because you claimed. It's like I didn't claim.
Yeah.
Not a fault claim. You get the idea.
But yeah, so that all went on in the middle of this, and now finally he's managed to get something.
Hang on, after the turbo blew up in the T5, we had all the drama of failing to get the whole set working. I can't remember what went wrong on it, but something else went on the T5, and then he got the Passat.
Yeah, so I've had a lot of VWs. I've had a Mark V Passat. This was actually a Mark 5.5 PD 130. It was good. It was pretty solid. Everything seemed to be working on it. We went and checked it out one evening and cannonballed it over to Swansea, did the exchange there, and then came back so that he had the car fine. Because there's nothing in South Wales that's cheap, because it's the middle of nowhere. Either things are nice, but you can't sell them for what they're worth because there's no market around there, or everything that's cheap is completely wrecked because it's so wet. They rust into the ground. So we got
the car market in South West Wales isn't the best. So we got something local around here. Cannonballed it down to him.
Sorted that out.
Stopped at the border because of course we weren't allowed to cross the border.
Yeah.
Yeeted the keys over at him and then buggered off.
Yeah. So that went nicely. That was a good fun run.
So that thing. Now I couldn't tell because I'd hardly driven for the past year, and the little bit I had driven was all in an automatic. So I got in it and I'm like, okay, the clutch is not super happy, but it's there. Like, it doesn't slip or anything. Handed it to Sam the next day, having said, it was all right. I bought it. The clutch, because I bought it thinking the clutch was okay. Handed it over, and he goes, because he actually knows what a clutch is supposed to feel like. He goes, dude, what? Because he was like, your knee was somewhere up here before the clutch would bite.
Yeah, it was pretty far gone, and I don't think it was as bad, but it got very bad very quick. It must have been in the last 10% or so of its life when he got it, and it just. Yeah. I mean, it's a hilly area. You're going to eat through clutch fast.
It's not that hilly down.
Your end? Oh, okay, fair enough. But either way, it died.
Yeah. So to be fair, he was doing a pizza run in it, right, which is relatively hard on cars.
So the real
died, hang on, and sorry, do you want to know the best part? It wasn't the clutch that went, as far as we can tell. The gearbox seized. He couldn't shift. Something broke. I don't know what exactly broke inside the gearbox, but it would not pull out of first gear. It was mechanically jammed in first somehow.
It's horrendous.
It's like we could start it in gear.
In gear, clutch down, and use first.
And then drive it around in first gear, anyway, which is fine.
Enough to get it to the scrapyard.
Yeah.
So
he actually sold that last week for £20 more than scrap value.
More than scrap value.
I think someone wanted it to replace the engine in this Skoda.
Yeah, not the gearbox. So eventually, he managed to get something.
Yeah. At this point,
useful.
At this point, he's extremely bored of cars repeatedly breaking on him, or of being so expensive that he can't run them. So he got rid of the 86. Obviously, scrapped the Passat and everything. He goes, right, okay, I'm going to get some finance. I'm going to get a nice car, something relatively new, something with some warranty.
Yeah.
Something that I can trust, because he does a pizza delivery round, it's his only income. He's like, I need a car that works.
Yeah.
Rock solid reliability. So he grabbed him a £6,000 10-year-old Beamer off of Auto Trader.
Yep. That should be solid. Not even like the cheap. Like, I've made the mistake. I say mistake. I had the first A6 that I had was the cheapest one in the country of that particular spec, but I was looking for something very, very specific.
Sorry, real quick one. Okay. Anyone who's ever watched Hoovie's channel on YouTube knows that I bought the cheapest X is not a good way to go.
It's not a good way to start looking for anything, particularly when it comes to Hoovie's stuff. And he's buying lots of esoteric things.
And off we go into the weeds.
But I bought the cheapest A6 because it was all I could afford at the time, and there were 2 for sale in the country, so I was kind of Hobson's choiced into that, and I did largely the same again with my current
I'll let you carry
A6.
on talking about that for a second.
So I've done it a couple of times, and for the most part I've got away with it, and it works fine. But it's again buying something that has some warranty, and when things go wrong you can go back and say, hey, can you fix this? My Passat before I had the A6, the first A6 that got written off, the Passat that got written off was exactly the same. So he's got this Beamer, and all is well on it, except for it's got a bunch of little niggles. For the most part, it's fine, but it was running a bit rough, and then it started misfiring, and these are things that are dealt with by a second-hand car warranty. Unfortunately, they don't have a warranty company that they work with like an approved bunch of dealers or garages or anything like that. It has to be done by them because that's how they work. They are wonderfully centrally located near to Bedford.
Luke, sorry?
The garage
for
the Beamer.
Hang on, what bit of it are we talking about?
The fact that it needs to go back to them.
Oh, right, yeah.
They're really centrally located in the country, which is brilliant if you're buying anything in the home counties, Essex, Norfolk, Suffolk,
so he's basically
the
up by
Midlands,
Luton.
the southeast, the south kind of central Reading area. It's an hour and a half, thereabouts. Absolutely fine. Unfortunately, if you are in the furthest, southest, westest part of Wales, this is a 5-hour drive.
So I assume at this point we've mentioned that Sam gets himself a £6,000 relatively new car.
Yep. Well,
and within a month it
I'm
shits
like,
the bed, right?
It's got some problems, but this is what you have a warranty for. This is the whole point. You drive it, you make sure that everything is working one way or another. And it needs to go back for work. So he's now in the Rover. So we've got an episode coming up middle of next month. Yeah, probably just after Easter, where we emergency throw that giant honking radiator into the SD1 in about 2 days, including finding new hydraulic lines.
It was in an evening and a morning.
Yeah.
I think really.
Yeah, we stripped all the parts on one Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Wasn't I? Oh yeah, and then I had Monday. And we threw the rest of it in on the Monday, having got a bunch of parts because I was working. And then the Tuesday, the rest of it got put back together. And that was get hydraulic lines made up to go from the original Rover fittings onto this Misk little oil cooler that we had on the car. And it kind of all works, but he's now stuck in the Rover again, which has had to go all the way back over to Wales. And as I say, we had to very hastily throw this all back together.
Personally,
but now...
I do really love the fact that Sam gets himself a nice relative, like compared to everything else we've ever owned. Like, we're a family of old car owners, right? I know a lot of people, they hear 10 years old for a car and they think, wow, that's ancient. 10 years old is the newest car, apart from the 86, that pretty much any of us have ever owned.
Yeah.
So Sam gets himself the newest car the family's had in donkey's years, the most expensive car the family's had in donkey's years, and within a month, if I remember right, it wasn't
blew
a coil.
Cataclysmically failed.
It ran,
but something broke, and ultimately the warranty had to be invoked. Yeah. Unfortunately, 5 hours away. But now, is that done?
The punchline. Hang on. The punchline to me is Sam gets himself a 10-year-old car, nice and reliable, and ends up in the Rover.
Back in the Rover again.
So, oh no, my modern, safe, reliable, car has now crapped its pants, and I need to borrow the 35-year-old British car. Unfortunately, because Sam is driving the Rover now has problems.
Yeah, so you remember when we were doing the work on it and putting it back together, we said, oh yeah, it's got some leaks, and we fixed a few bits and pieces, but ultimately the radiator was still leaking, the gearbox oil circuit or the cooler circuit was leaking a little bit as well, and there was an oil leak on the block of engine oil, and this was fine because the oil leak, the engine was in acceptable limits.
Yeah, it was fine. It was no big
the
deal.
Golf was worse.
It was weeping,
and I
think would be a fair term.
Yeah, and the gearbox one was a little bit of a pain. So the gearbox one got solved for the most part, didn't it? When we put the cooler on, because we tightened up a few things.
No, the gearbox is still
still going. Okay.
The gearbox is still leaking a little bit. Obviously, the radiator is no longer leaking because the leaky radiator is not in the car anymore. And we had a bit of a panic because we thought the engine oil leak had gotten way worse.
Yeah. So you ended up, oh my god, it's all broken.
Yeah, I had a panic because Sam stopped the car one day and some oil had come out of somewhere and wound up on the exhaust and it was smoking.
Maffey is exactly right. Sam's car history would be an epic story time episode. How to spend 30 grand and still have nothing to drive. The story of the unluckiest car guy in the UK.
Pretty much.
Yeah, basically that. We should probably get him to just do a hit list of everything he's gone through and be like, this happened, this happened.
At this point, Sam has just cause to hate almost every car manufacturer on the planet.
Yeah.
Near enough. Certainly every car manufacturing nation on the planet.
Yeah,
apart from, like, America. He's had bad luck with German cars, bad luck with
English cars,
arguably Spanish cars. Is Seat? No.
Seat is Spanish. Yeah, I mean,
bad luck with Japanese cars, bad luck with British cars.
Yep.
So anyway, yeah. So some oil came out of somewhere, got onto the exhaust, and Sam thought that the rear crank seal had gone from weeping to
exploded,
gushing.
Yes,
I think would be a fair phrase for what he thought had happened.
Fortunately,
thankfully, it turned out that wasn't the case, and I was like, "Hey, the Rover's fine, no big deal. Panic over." I get a message the other day saying the Rover's misfiring and it's blowing massive.
Wind one. He clearly needs to go to the bastion of reliable cars, Italy.
Oddly enough, we nearly got an Alpha recently. In fact, actually, no, it was nearly an alpha rather than the Passat.
Yeah.
It was going to be an alpha.
We were looking at an
talked
alpha
ourselves
going
out
like,
of.
we absolutely could go down the route of just buy him an alpha because, A, alpha, tick it off the bucket list. B,
Yeah.
if it's going to explode, he doesn't need to feel bad because
you
it's
kind
an
of expect
alpha.
it, yeah.
You expect these things to die, so it would have been absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, we thought, no, the Passat is a much more sensible option as he actually has to rely on it. I bet that alpha's still going.
It probably running
is.
perfectly.
As Rive says, a £1,000
£1,000
alpha. Yeah,
needs
we
to
need
happen,
to. Yeah, we need to.
Well, this was a £750 alpha, if I remember right.
That's £210 more risk.
Yeah.
What we should probably do is we should probably finish the track car. We should get the Golf working and then take it somewhere, and then get the Thunderbird put back together, and I can turn all of these wheels
All right,
in
mate, aim
anger.
low. Come.
And then I'm going to buy a £1,000 alpha, and even if we end up having to do like a do you know what we should do it as a we could do it as like a Patreon thing, and like, look what the Patrons made us do. Save up some.
All of the Patreons threatened to withdraw this unless we got an alpha.
Yeah. Save up some Patreon money for a while, and then put it in, buy an alpha, and just to tick it off the bucket list.
We bought the cheapest alpha in the country.
Buy the cheapest alpha in the country, and literally we just have a line of us, because there's quite a few of us in the group. So there's Maffy, Rive, who are both in the chat, Heather, myself,
round.
Chris, and we literally just go. We drive it around the block and we hand it down so that all of us can tick off the owned an alpha, and then we take it to a track day and we drive it in anger and see which one of us kills it on track.
Yeah.
And if it makes it through that, we sell it as clearly bomb-proof alpha for a massive profit.
I think Heather's got the wrong idea there, by the way. Heather's saying an alpha in the group means Rive has to stop convincing everyone to buy a Scooby. No. It means he pivots from convincing everyone to buy an alpha to convincing everyone to buy a Scooby.
Yeah. Plus, I still need to convince people to buy a Skoda Octavia, because that is a standing
that's another
joke
one that keeps coming up on our...
every time. No matter when we've been looking for cars for people, and that is for me as something temporary, for Yolanda, for Chris, for
Maffy
Sam,
as well,
for Maffy,
for Sam,
for Heather, for anybody.
There's always a Skoda that comes up amazing.
We have a master spreadsheet that we built between us, and Maffy put a lot of work into, and we did all of it. And you can basically put in the car, the engine size, the insurance group, the costings. If you sort of go through, it doesn't integrate, but you go through and you check the cost, and you can put options in, you can weight things, then you can sort by best to worst, including MPG, cost, everything. Brilliant. We really should make it into an app. And every single time, Skoda.
Oh, so Skoda, sorry,
every
Skoda
single time, I find a Skoda that breaks everything, and because nobody wants to buy the Skoda, it always has to have a massive negative, but it's this goddamn Skoda to weight it back down.
Yeah, we have like cool points that we put on cars on the spreadsheet. Like Alphas obviously have a bias up, Skodas have a bias down.
Maffy's exactly a stop suggesting Octavias.
Yeah, it's not us suggesting it.
It's not me. It's the spreadsheet. Your spreadsheet that does it.
Yeah.
I just find it to you. I'm not enabling it.
Skodas are mathematically, scientifically, provably, indisputably amazing.
Yes.
But none of us want them. So.
none of it. We always find some reason to look for something better, and it just.
Wandering back 5 minutes to Sam's bad luck with cars, we work out eventually that the Rover has not in fact exploded.
Yeah.
Fast forward 4 days.
Do you want me to put the photo?
The Rover has in fact exploded.
Of which you got a picture of the Rover?
Not quite yet. We'll get to that in 1 second. I've got a photo on my laptop that will pop onto the stream in a second. So, Rover is unhappy. We suspect it's either a warped head or a blown gasket. We don't know yet. We don't have the head off. But Sam's convinced that while it was running low on coolant because of the leaking radiator, it sort of softened the head or something along those lines. Like it, I don't know, maybe it I don't know the science. Maybe it annealed it. Maybe it softened it. Maybe it warped it. And then he maybe went a bit too hard on it one day, and it just sort of goes, nope. And decided to start letting coolant into one of the boards. So there's massive white clouds everywhere he goes. It's misfiring really badly. It's gutless and horrible, and everything is sad.
Yeah,
that would be fine because
it's think it's a head gasket.
So not a big deal. The top of the head comes off super easily.
Yeah.
The valve, there's so much room around that engine. You'll see it in the episode where we do the radiator. So I was not worried about the head at all because I also have a head gasket.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that I could comfortably, I say comfortably, strong word, comfortably lie in that engine bay around the engine. You wouldn't close
Yeah,
the bonnet,
if
but
you were
I could
made of rubber,
definitely-
you could,
I could fit in like a U shape around that engine with the block down here. Basically, it's in not. I mean, my feet would probably hit the windscreen, but even so.
But there is a massive amount of room. You can
It's
stand
just
in the engine bay on the exhaust side.
Yes,
Right. There is
comfortably.
genuinely between the exhaust manifold and the inner wing you can stand in.
And you can stand on
So
the floor.
loads of room, and the head comes off really easy because it's only a single overhead cam. It's belt driven and everything. There's nothing horribly like complicated on it. You pop the belt off, undo some bolts, boink, cam carrier and head come off, easy. However, I got a phone call this morning off of Sam.
Oh God.
And he was distraught.
Okay, so I haven't heard it because I've been at work this morning.
This is new to A. Sam genuinely was distraught. Like the head, he wasn't worried about.
Yeah.
He was just like,
Is it,
Chris?
It's worse.
I've pranged the rover.
Oh God.
And in my head, I'm like, please
Define
be the
prang.
front passenger wing. Please be the front
Yes,
passenger wing.
yeah.
So
Or the bumper that I repainted.
or the
That'd be
bumper,
fine.
right? So the reason I wanted it to be the front passenger wing is when the guy at the body shop was redoing it, he did manage, right? And I say in our video about the car that the paintwork is flawless, and genuinely it mostly is. There is one chink in the armour, and it's a mistake, and it can happen easily. And I have also been promised it goes back in and it gets sorted for free. It just needed to wait for the paint to harden. Anyway, while the guy was working on it and the paint was soft, he dropped something on it. I'm not sure, was it the spray gun or a set of keys, whatever it was, and knocked a chunk of paint out of it all the way down to metal. And obviously you can't like
Because it's soft.
and you can't rub it back while it's soft and everything. He's like, just bring it back in, a couple of weeks or a couple of months or whatever.
Everything will be
and I'll
solved.
sort it. So I was like, if Sam has damaged a panel, let it be that one.
Yeah.
Let it be the one that needed work already.
Yeah.
So Yola, if you would be so kind.
Go on. I haven't
This
seen
is the wheel arch on the Rover
That looks like
as of now.
front left.
It is the front passenger side wheel arch.
Thank God for that.
And I'm on the phone. I'm like, so okay, what corner of it did you scrape? He's like, oh, it was the front passenger wheel arch. I'm like, oh, you beauty. And on the phone, he's just like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, that's the one that's getting redone anyway. He's like, what do you mean it's getting redone? It's the one with the chip in it.
Yeah.
He's like, how am I so unlucky and simultaneously so lucky? Because honestly, he was genuinely distraught when he phoned me.
The sad thing is, the chip isn't even noticed. I didn't spot the chip. I looked over that car because I was going to take some beauty shots of it for the thing. Chris is like, no, wait until it's been finished. I'm like, it's been done, dude. Like, no. And pointed out this tiny little thing.
Yeah.
And unless you're told where to look, you can't see it. It's smaller. In fact, it's probably between half and a quarter the size.
Oh, it's like a
my
couple of
little-
square mil. Yeah.
My pinky finger.
Yeah. Now, my hypothesis, just
Just-
answering Rive there, he's saying he's even unlucky at being unlucky. No, Sam is genuinely unlucky.
Yeah.
Right? He honestly is just unlucky start to finish. The reason, when the Rover got scraped, the reason it was on this wing is because it's my car and I'm really lucky.
Sorry, one
So
second.
Sam's unlucky that it got done.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that it got done on that panel.
Yeah. Rive's saying, this one intrigues me. I think he's looking. Yes, the spreadsheet does need a story time. We need to go through it and do it properly. But Rive's saying it has urgent need of a timing chain replacement. Like, as in the timing chain has already gone. Urgent need of a timing chain replacement suggests just don't start it.
I'll be honest,
Just
I'm hearing
don't buy
timing
it.
chain and I'm already noping out. I just don't like timing chains. Here's a weird one. The SD one
They
was
are a
weird.
lot. They are a lot more work
Yeah.
than a belt.
The SD one was weird in its time for using a belt.
Life unit.
Yeah.
For an engine that big, I would have expected a chain. I mean, so my
That's the thing. It was one
my
of VL's
first-
first cars to go to a belt.
My first A6 was the 2.7 TDI, which is an evolution of the 2.5 TDI engine, and the 3 litre was an evolution of the. Oh God, which one was it? No, the 3 litre was I think a complete fresh design. I could be wrong, but either way, the 2.7 is an evolution of the 2.5 litre design, as I understand it, which has a single timing chain, which is perfectly fine until you chip it and you put more power into it. And I got the car, I never chipped it, and unfortunately, after about 12 months, I don't drive it particularly hard because I was all about the fuel mileage on that car, and it was ridiculous. That massive 1.6 ton estate car, I managed to get 62 to the gallon out of it on the motorway. And that was
because
amazing.
once it's moving, it's literally unstoppable.
Yeah, basically.
It just rolls all the way from here to wherever you're going.
Vast quantities of it are aluminium.
Yeah.
All the wings, the bonnet, everything, it's all aluminium. So
it's still 1.6 tons.
It's still 1.6 tons, yeah, sure.
Plus the air inside it.
Yeah. So it's a hell of a car. And yeah, basically the timing chain stretched and just nuked the engine completely. It just...
we had...
I wouldn't even credit it.
What is it that's in the quad cam V6s? Is that a chain as well in the 2.4 from late 90s, early 1000s?
Single chain.
Single chain, yeah, because that blew out on my granddad's car.
So the 2.4 is a... Bear with me on this one.
It doesn't actually matter. You can drop it if you want.
Yeah, the
you
2.4
can't not.
the 2.4 V6 is a single chain.
Right.
Actually no,
Either way, it wrote the engine off.
Whereas
so.
the 2.6 is a belt, not a chain, which is what we had in Rowdy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just amazing. You wouldn't credit how unlucky it is. But how is Chris coming on with?
I've done
StressCAD?
literally nothing. Because I'm now at a point where the only thing I can do now is I can get measurements off of this and the car and everything and go, okay, I can now start referencing.
Here is the not square.
Oh no, I really do mean and the car.
Oh, and the car, right, okay. Well, the car as it stands is actually quite an easy one. We can come on to a little bit more interesting news, and Yolanda can put us up some interesting pictures of the car as it stands.
This was the least stressful CAD I've done in quite a while.
Yes, yeah, actually not particularly stressful CAD. Makes a wild change.
It's nice because this was actually something that I knew vaguely how to do. I had two shapes and I wanted to connect them with a puddle.
Yeah.
So I know how to do this.
So, not that one. That is, well, I mean, that one can go up.
Sorry.
But I was going to go through some of the pictures. I've been looking around. Last year, I picked up a bunch of metal on Facebook Marketplace. Lots of 2" by 1" metal.
Box section.
Yeah, box section, basically. Just loads and loads of stock and a couple of bits of 1" by 1" and some 20mm and stuff. Crucially, however, there was about 40 or 50 linear feet of this, and the seller wanted £10 for it. So, naturally,
Bargain.
I took it. Just because it was available and it was in stock and it was dirt cheap. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to use it for, but I'm going to find something because that's too good to pass up. So, sure enough, I got a bunch of metal and I started looking at things I could do with it, and one of the options I came up with was to build a rotisserie. Now, I have got a picture of some car spits that I researched online and had a look at, and basically went through eBay, things people had made themselves and were selling, and some more professional ones as well. Now, I also have the folder.
Sorry, while you're doing that, I'm just grabbing a couple of pictures of the car on the rotisserie.
I've got some.
Oh, have you?
Yeah,
Cool.
they're
Saves
already
me the
shared.
effort.
They're already in. So they are kind of numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 as a sub numbering. So if you go onto the one that doesn't have a sub numbering on first, which is like the second to last one, the blue one, s-l1600.jpg. Yep, that's the one. And then just
That's a lot fancier than ours, I'll be honest.
yeah, so this one is a lot fancier than ours. This is fully adjustable left-right for the width of the mounting points, and it has a little bit more stability underneath it, but the jacks don't actually link, and it has no wheels on it. And I really wanted to be able to wheel it around on the drive if we needed to, because I figured something was going to end up on the drive, or end up on the rotisserie long-term. Although we haven't had to wheel it around yet, so
I'll be honest, I do not want to wheel it around as it is.
it needs a
I
little.
would very reluctantly pull it across. I wouldn't want to move it.
I wouldn't
along its
run it
length at
all
all.
the way down the end of the drive. Like it will take it fine, but it needs.
It's more that you've got to keep the ends from doing that. As
Yeah,
you
it
go.
needs an extra bracing to stop it.
Yeah.
Kind of. It does parallelogram
Yeah,
ever so
it's just-
slightly at the moment. So if Yolanda goes on to the next one, so I took this.
What's the weight rating on that
this-
ride? More than our car.
So
Some.
the weight rating on that one is good, well north of a ton. And by the time you've stripped out the engine, the gearbox, all of the transmission stuff and everything, you're still well done. No, the next one of the blue one, so the one that's parentheses 1 at the end, top left corner. So that's how that one indexes, and it has a spring-loaded pin that you can rotate around and lock it, which is nice and fancy, but not strictly speaking what I was after. And there is a wheeled version of that, which is number 4 in that folder. If you just jump through, you can see kind of the top locking pin there. So that one has 4 wheels on it, but it doesn't join in the middle. You're just relying on the car to join the 2 ends together, which doesn't seem as strong. Although it's not hard to kind of.
If you think about it, the car's probably stronger than that one piece of half-inch box we have running down the middle. Like, it makes sense actually.
Yeah,
the car
but
holds
I mean,
the middle up.
the fact that it's stronger
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything. Is the bottom piece strong enough? Yes.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, so it does work. But the one picture back, if you just jump that back, Yolanda, that's more like what I was thinking. And there's a bunch of others which I haven't actually got pictures of in this folder that had wheels on the bottom of the arms, and then usually it's inch by inch, and it's just a tension beam that sits between the two, and you just adjust it to the length that you need it, basically.
Yeah, it's literally just there to stop the 2 ends of the frame doing that.
Yeah.
With the weight of the car on the top of them.
Yeah, so you create a top and a bottom. Now, unfortunately, ours has got a little bit too much play in the bottom of it, so it parallelograms about 2 to 3 inches.
We're about like that.
Left and right,
and it, sort of
and it just kind of wobbles a touch. So it needs to stay on the outside, just pushing in, but it also needs to be adjustable because our driveway isn't flat. And that's why I didn't immediately put legs on originally, because if our driveway is completely off kilter and you're going over all the bumps, actually having an outrigger on the back is no use whatsoever, and it makes everything harder to do, because then you end up undulating the triangle around, or however you do it, on it, and it becomes almost impossible to move, which is one of the big problems we have with the engine crane when we're trying to move that, because certain wheels dig in at different points.
Yeah, we've got this horrible, like, rough, not quite
concrete
stuff.
It's concrete, but it's patterned. You put a template down on it, and it does a really nice pattern in the drive, and it looks great. It looks like you've got a block paved drive.
Yeah, it's as rough as cobbles, basically.
Yeah, it has none of the benefits of a block paved drive, which drains really quickly because it drains at every brick. It's not flat like a block paved drive. It's quick to pour like concrete, so it has all the benefits of concrete, except for it's not flat, which concrete would be.
It's basically
it's the worst.
Crap.
It's the worst, but it looks good.
Nice.
Yeah, but there are huge compromises to if you want to use it for anything more than standing on. So that's kind of where the problem is. Yeah. So we made a spit more like, actually, if you go down to picture number 7, Yolanda, which is across 3, I think. Next one. Yep.
I love how you're describing the spit that we made when we just have pictures of it.
I'll get to it. But this was basically the biggest inspiration that I took for mine. I looked at that and went, well, the metal that I have is definitely capable of making that. I'm sure I have enough in linear feet to make it work, so I'll just start welding things together. And I did. And then we eventually got the car onto the spit, which is in this folder. And if you grab the second one in across in the car spit folder, in the photos folder, you get the second one over. That is our car completely rolled over, and it was quite fun kind of lifting it up and putting it on, and we used the little jack that we got out of the Rathfinder in order to lift it up. We've got some nice video coming up in episode 72 of mounting it up onto the spit and spinning it over, and we've done a huge amount of welding to the underside of that. All of those little floor pins that bolted the plywood in, they've all been welded in across the bottom as well, because I'd only done the top.
We were about 2 days or so, I think, welding up and finishing up underneath
just
the car.
Cleaning job. I've got a list of jobs that were like, oh, next time the car comes apart, this needs to be done. Also, when we flip it, it needs this. There's loads and loads of stuff on that list. And then we've added a bunch of other bits, like a metal lip along the edge of the perimeter to the main body of the car, so that we can run the wood underneath inside it. And actually, the lowest point of the car is then the metal rather
we've got
than
like
the
a
wood.
little skirt hanging off the whole
and
thing,
that's where the
basically.
jacking points are as well, at the front and rear of the passenger cell. So you can lift it easily. You're not crushing the wood, and it's going into much stronger points. So yeah, it is doing very well, but at the same time, welding all of that in has burned through an enormous amount of gas. Tomorrow I'm going to get a new gas bottle because we emptied the one that we have. I think that's our 4th gas bottle now in
Give or take,
3 years. Like it's going pretty well.
I remember when we started out, we had these tiny little hobby bottles from Halfords. It's like, man, we
Oh.
rinsed through those so fast.
Yeah. And to be fair,
So yeah, you don't build a car with these little cartridge bottles like that. You want the proper big.
Yeah. And before that, we were using gasless, and gasless was awful. Don't just honestly. If all you've got is gasless or the hobby bottles, take the hobby bottles every day of the week. Use that one hobby bottle, realise how much better it is, and,
and then
go and get a full size. Well, not even a full size. The half size bottles that we've got are about this.
Wait, are we half size bottles?
Yeah.
Oh,
Full size bottles are 5 feet, and they go up to 400 bar, I think, or 350 bar. Ours come in at about 200, 220, something like that.
Well, our reg only supports 250, so yeah.
They go big bottles.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to carry one of those more than anything. I can't physically lift the big ones. I can just.
I can move the half size ones without like. Yeah.
I mean,
it's not horrible.
It's
not fun, but yeah,
you never.
It's
really
amazing how heavy they are.
Yeah,
when
you
they're
never really
full,
consider the weight of gas until it's dense.
At 200 bar, it starts to weigh a bit. Yeah.
Until there's 200 bar of it in a very small.
There's 200
space,
bottles of gas in one bottle.
Yeah, there's something about.
You pressed the button.
I pressed the button. And I ejected. Well, at least I didn't empty it all over the floor. Like that would have been a more critical error.
I just trying to pick up a Dyson for comparison.
Yeah.
And picked up like.
Yeah. So just take my word for it. It's about the size of a decent Dyson. But yeah, so that's the car on the spit. If you spin over,
It's probably like 4 foot tall, give or take. 3.
What, the bottle?
Oh no, sorry, it's 4 foot with the reg and everything else off. Probably 3 foot the bottle, I reckon.
Yeah, ours is probably
and like
about
that.
And about that in diameter.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, there is a bit of 965 to it. It's even if the tail was higher, it would feel a lot like a 917.
Can't place a 917 off the top of my head.
Derek's the Golf 917 Le Mans Porsche.
I'd recognise it if I saw it, but
Yeah, you would. Yolanda, Golf 917.
in
Sorry.
a moment.
Yeah.
So
yes.
spit to get through first.
So that's where we're at the moment. You can see where we've been adding some paint in because the primer's been all right.
Oddly enough, Winged One, yes. Group
Yes.
C is something that we've mentioned a couple of times in the build. Actually, a few people have also told me or asked me.
Yeah.
So, are you going for kind of a Group C look before it was quite so well defined as this? Is it going to look a bit Group C? You know, sort of big side pod, that sort of. Yes, it will be Group C.
Yes. So that's kind of where that's going, which would be nice. While Yolanda tries to find pictures. So that is very much where it's going, but it's going to have a much higher nose to it because the 917 has a very low kind of ankle biter front lip to it.
Yeah.
And that absolutely doesn't work with speed bumps and general roads.
So
it's going to have a much higher grille to account for the radiator and a bunch of other things, obviously. So it will be generally taller, but still have a nice kind of dip down, and the headlights will be lifted up a little bit where we've got them.
Go into picture.
So yeah, that is the. Is that the 956? Sorry, is that the 917?
that's not.
956.
No, that's way more recent.
I was
than
going to say that's the
917,
956. Yeah, that's the one that.
Yeah,
that
we're not going to
Ryan was
be
talking
we're
about.
not going to be as flat at the front as like pointy down to the ground at the front as Group C, just because we haven't. Partly because that would probably screw us on the SVA. Partly because
no, you can go low. You can go low on the
fair enough.
SVA. You just have to be rounded. It has to be a.
But the other one is as well, like the foremost part of the car structure at the minute, and also coincidentally the foremost part of the car's machinery is quite high up. So we really can't go low without extending the front of the car out miles.
Yes, if you imagine the top edge of the radiator leans like this.
Yeah.
We then have to go another to get a slope like the 956 on the front. You'd be talking about going from the. Well, actually, if you put the picture back up. Yes, you can. Yeah, you can SVA what is essentially a 956. There are 917s. So if you grab a picture of the 917, which was Derek Bell's one.
Yeah, Ralph's basically got it. We can't go that low at the front unless we make the nose even longer.
Yes, yeah. Actually, if you pop the
you
pop the other picture up of it back on the spit, then I can kind of point a little bit easier to it. One sec, Chris. Just while this is in my mind. Because basically I'm screwing with Yolanda here, just saying, get the thing, get the thing, get the thing, and she can't, because she is but one person trying to do many things. Yes, so just while Yolanda's finding that, Tom, who we met in Tucson, has just messaged me saying Sabine passed on. Yes, Sabine Schmidt unfortunately died today, which is extremely sad. I have met her a couple of times. Really nice person, always seemed to have time for people. Obviously the Piston Klaus in Nürburg is her family's restaurant.
Good restaurant
and her sisters work there as well, and it's really good. But yeah, it is properly the end of an era, because she would normally be racing in the Nürburgring 24 hours. She was one of the presenters on Top Gear for a while, doing things in the, so yeah, it is a real shame. And nearly 52. She was 51 and change. It's not even that old. You know, cancer is a bitch.
Is it cancer?
Cancer. Yeah, 3 years. So she was diagnosed in 2017 and was battling it, and then in 2020, I think it was July last year, she announced that she had it still, or rather, she'd had it, had been battling it, and had a relapse, and it had come through again. So, yeah, that's not ideal, let's say. So massive loss. And there we go. That is in fact a 917 with Derek Bell. And yeah, you can SVA those as well. Obviously, they need some modifications to a few things to get them through, but to all intents and purposes, that's the 917.
Yeah. The other thing that makes it even harder for us to do something like that is our headlights are quite high up and far forward relative to the wheels. So the amount of front that we need in front of the arches is even more than that, because we're starting from a higher, further forward point.
The big problem on the 917 is actually the height of the headlights. So where the rearmost headlight is on that image, that's about right, and it's about the right height. But the lower one, the one that sits much further forward, is too low for the SVA. You get away for a fog light, that would be absolutely fine. But for
a high beam, because it's not something that anyone
has to be. Has to be in the top. Yeah. So it's they have to be within that area. But fog lights you could definitely have lower down. So if you put in a twin filament in the top one, you're fine. But yeah, the front of our car is about. You can see on the number 22 down the front where it just sort of starts to drop off. Into that big vent. That is approximately, I mean, I'm judging from a small picture over my shoulder on a screen without having one in front of me, but that's roughly where the front lip of our radiator height is. So we'd have to go another probably 18 inches, maybe even a little bit more in front, which is 600 mil, just to get the kind of slope you would have on the 917 or even the 956. And I don't want that. And I also didn't want to go with stacked headlights and then big sheets of plastic and Lexan or something like that over the front, because shaping that is very difficult.
It's fine. We'll just go to a Le Mans team and say, hey, have you got any spare headlights we can pinch, please, for our project?
Yeah, I did actually look at the more modern Audi and Toyota versions, which have their headlights they're built into the front, but they're almost on a pillar that sits on the very front of the wheel arch, and the headlight lens, for want of a better word, the plastic that goes around the front to streamline it, only seems to wrap in one direction. So it's a much easier curve to come round through one axis.
Yeah, you can start with a flat and just bend it over. Yeah.
And you can get away with it. And I kind of thought about that, but it wasn't.
It
still would have made it very long to get the slope all the way down and fit the radiator in and the fuel tank and the pedal box, and you just end up as a sort of packaging concern. You go, I could do this, but actually by the time you have to look further and further back, even the lip that we were originally aiming for above where the radiator is, if you imagine this is the radiator on the front of the car, which sits here. It is dead in line with the original chassis top as it sits right there. But to get any kind of sensible shape to the bodywork above it, we're still about 2.5 inches higher than that, which is good because we've now had to run our radiator hose over the top through there. But yeah, where it crosses the radiator, it's a couple inches at least above the radiator, and that slopes down even further forward.
Earlier on, the idea was we'd have wheel arches relatively high, and we'd dip down a little and hug the top of the radiator and come back up for the other arch. And we're still doing that, but all of it, rather than being like here and here, it's all like
So if you have the wheels in this
that,
section, instead of it going down and sort of dropping, coming down and going straight across, as
all
Chris
of it
said,
is higher than we originally expected.
Higher down, and it comes across here. So there's still a good probably 5 to 6 inch drop from the top edge of the wheel well. In fact, no, probably even more than that.
No, I think about 5 or 6 inches from the top of the arch to the
to
like the centre.
Yeah, the centre trough of the
yes.
So yeah, there's still some good lift across it. Also, there's still some good depth across it to give the right look. But it has changed a bit as we've added things and had to look at the packaging and just go, oh, okay, well that's not going to work, and that's not going to work, and that's not going to work.
One thing that I was really excited about for a little while, when we put the radiator out the front, leaning forward like that, I was like, oh, we can have this big old proper like Group C style duct out the front of the car.
Yeah.
We have no idea how we're gonna make that.
No, I have an idea how it can run. However, actually making it is still going to be a little bit tricky because that is going to need some metalwork ducting,
forming and shaping.
I think the ducting that sits underneath the bonnet, like actually bringing it through, is probably going to be made out of aluminium, just riveted in. We still also need to work out how we're going to attach the body, which for a while we were looking at shaping certain panels and just welding them on permanently where we know we're absolutely not going to have to remove panels from. Like the side pods where there's nothing and we can actually access it from the inside.
There's no service parts inside of them, stuff like the wings.
Exactly. So down that end and where the wheels are, because we can get in from the inside into those, we could feasibly weld those on. But there is other parts of me going, oh, but we could, if we make it, we can have some flanges and then just pop rivet them in like they would be on the Caterham or something like that. And this is mostly what I was thinking about for the last 2 days on set whilst I was sat in a van, not ferrying people around for a little bit.
Just to be clear.
Yeah, not I was actually on a film shoot for the National Film and Television School. And I was just kind of pondering this, going, oh, we could do that, we could do this, we could do that, we could do that. No. And I think actually the more I look at the chassis again and go, no, there is plenty of parts we can just weld the bodywork on. It only needs to be spot welded in certain areas along it, and it will be perfectly fine, and then seam sealed. So we're not having to put a huge amount of heat into it, which is good. So it's not going to warp. It will be strong, durable. It's not going to flex. It'll be easy, in inverted commas, to paint for somebody with talent.
Can you grab us up another picture of the skeleton somewhere, please?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Car design through interpretive dance. Thanks for the shade.
Yeah. So what I kind of have in my head for a lot of the panel forming, especially on like the front wings and stuff, is we roll our sheet metal over the wing, and we drill little holes through the sheet metal onto where these little
yes,
what would you call them? Ribs, I suppose?
Sorry, one second. As Wing One says, he did in fact arrive into the party a little bit late to give us proper in-depth knowledge of what we should be doing. So this has all been kind of, well, it's been kind of winged by us. And now we're taking advice late in the day.
I think actually I've been in his Discord server the whole time. I just didn't really talk about it very much.
You suck.
No, hang on. No, to be fair, the server it's not my server to just like randomly advertise my stuff in, right?
It's not your.
I was
you're
just
like,
had iffy about it for a
it's
long
not your
time.
position to just kind of like self-promote.
When I eventually asked, he was like, "What? Don't be stupid, of course."
Yeah, this sounds cool. Yes.
Yeah.
So the wing, basically the rear quarters are probably going to be completely skinned from where that inch tube is just behind the passenger cell, kind of in line with the main roll hoop. There's this inch tube structure that goes down. From there backwards, it's probably going to be... Actually, on the outer skin, it can probably be permanently attached because we can get in through the wheel well to everywhere that we need to be. And the side pods can be permanently attached as well because, again, we can get in from the inside of the car through the triangulated bracing quite easily. So yeah, we might actually end up welding a lot of the bodywork onto the car in a more permanent fashion. Maybe leave the above the hip line, kind of above the shoulder line, as a lift-off section so that we can get in very easily to do work on it without having to clamber through a tiny little hole for something. But that might be the way to go. That's going to need a little bit of thought. Much like most of the project is probably due a little bit more thought before we do things. But it's still
the passenger cell is pretty robust, I think. It's going to help that where our backs are is directly is right in front of. Obviously, we've got the main roll hoop above us.
Yeah.
We're going to have another what is it? 3-inch tube. The cage is made, or is it?
No, so the tube is made of 45 mil 2.6.
Is it really only 45? It seems bigger than that.
Yeah, it's 45.
Anyway,
2.6 mil wall. MSA approved roll cage tubing.
We've got the roll cage over us. We're going to have another run of that just behind us that we are using as a harness bar just to strap our harnesses to.
Yeah.
But obviously also is going to give it a huge amount of lateral strength behind us. And then on the floor underneath is a contiguous piece of inch box. Which is going to be like just on the floor level. I think actually, is there 2 pieces of inch box across the car already? Or did we get rid of one? At the very bottom of the car, and roughly I'd say like 40% up.
Oh, what, across the firewall?
The original back of the tub.
Yes, so the firewall itself still has 2 completely contiguous inch pieces of box, where normally in the Caterham you would have it broken into 2 pieces, so you'd have
because you have to break it around your tunnel.
Where the top of the tunnel is, and then another one at the bottom. We replaced the top one with a contiguous piece because we could. Actually, no, we didn't replace the top one. We replaced the bottom one, and actually the very bottom one that we put in is
3 mil wall as well.
It's 3 mil wall. It's thick wall, 1/8 inch tube, whereas most of the other stuff is thin wall because it was this is the outer perimeter. This is the very bottom between where the roll cage is going to be, so it might as well be stronger. It's low down, weight penalties are minimal at this point.
Yeah, the excuse me, but just while I stutter myself into a hole.
So well, hang on. So the side impact, as Rive's pointing out, there's quite a lot of metal there, and everything low down from the very edge of the skirt is braced with inch tube going across, which will deform and provide some amount of side impact, although there's not very much high up on the outside.
Yeah.
The inner cage, I say the inner cage.
There's nothing going across the inside of the cell.
Yeah.
Above floor level.
The inner body is relatively light. Sorry, the pods are relatively light higher up because they are going to fold no matter what. In a side impact, and to some degree, if they fold in, they're also going to pierce us. So the main part that that is doing the side impact structure is the original Caterham chassis, really, and that's pretty robust, and it's been added onto with various bits, so it is doing reasonably well, and it is going to go higher up than it currently looks.
We've added more in at the floor level as well. We've got a full extra section of inch box across the bottom of the car at roughly where our knees wind up?
So as you're looking at the side of the car there is a brace. This is really difficult. I want to point on the screen and I can't. So as you're looking where the inch tube is that comes down just in front of where the intercoolers mount, assuming you can discern that from that picture, there is another. Actually, if you put the picture up where it's on its side, you can see a plan view of the floor, and this becomes really, really very easy, which should be left or right one picture.
There's not a lot that we can do above floor level, just because if we put more structure in across the car above floor level, we can no longer get in the car.
I can do this.
Yeah.
And
using the power of zooming and panning.
Well, not even that. So there's a main brace that goes across here. Hopefully you can see where this little crosshair is moving across. So this was an extra one that we added in here.
You want to zoom in on it a bit, mate? Right click, open in new tab, or view image, whatever it is that...
We need to get the Surface Book.
Yeah, we kind of do. There is another brace that goes fully across under this line.
That's not fully, that's only in the centre triangle.
Sure?
Yep. So where the front of the car sort of where the outside of the cell tapers in like this.
That's this one here that only goes part way.
Oh, sorry, I thought that's the one you were pointing at. Sorry, I can't.
There's another one this side that goes right the way edge to edge there, and then there's the one at the feet, at the firewall at the front here that goes edge to edge. Even with the pedal box, it goes contiguous across the bottom of the pedal box, and then there's the brace that goes across the very back of the cell here. So laterally, it's braced pretty well across this line, as Rive says, below the windscreen. This edge along here isn't finished yet. it is inevitably, I'll just hop back in, it is going to end up a bit taller because otherwise we end up getting hit by water and all sorts of other stuff and spray that comes around. So there is that needs more work just to kind of work out where the inner edge of that bodywork is going to sit. So that's the trick.
I've got I hope this is a fairly
yes,
explanatory image.
Yeah, so there is, so as I said, there's a contiguous brace across behind the seats at the bottom of the original firewall between the roll cage. There's a contiguous piece underneath the middle of the seat. There's a contiguous piece just in front of the seat, and then it triangulates forward into the original firewall, and that has a contiguous piece from edge to edge on the floor as well.
And the main challenge is we can't really put any more in than that because then there's it's impossible to kind of squeeze our legs in. So
the floor plan itself is. It's stronger than it was in the original car because there's no longer a gap between the two sides where the drive shaft has to come in and out. It is edge to edge braced, so it is a lot stronger than it used to be. And there is extra crush zone, let's call it, before you get to the core chassis, which is both good and bad. On the one hand, it's really useful. On the other hand, it's a pain to climb over. And it does mean that there's not very much space in the centre of the cockpit itself. So yes, the original car. Yeah, what was like a car, I guess. We could probably do a run through and find all of the pictures that we have of the chassis right from the very beginning, and just do a quick run through and kind of talk through some of the.
I did a diagram for someone on Twitter a while ago where I highlighted all of the bits of metal that we'd kept and all the bits that we'd removed and all the bits that we'd replaced.
Well,
so
there was up on my Google Memories the other day.
Yeah.
And it was Abe and Sam stood in the garage. It was just the front end of the yellow chassis.
Yeah. When we were cleaning back and putting some paint down the other day, I actually found one of the original bits and went, "Oh look, it's the original yellow," and scrubbed it all off and then painted it over and managed to do it. Honestly, this car does make an Elise look like a palatial car to enter. With vast expanses and
I don't know what you're talking about. I have no problems getting in that thing. Me with my seemingly made of rubber 5'8" frame.
Name the car the Ship of Theseus, WandaVision. Yeah, okay. I haven't watched WandaVision yet.
But I do get the.
I wasn't prepared to put up with the weekly release schedule, so I'm due to watch it.
If you replace every plank of a ship, is it still the same ship?
Right,
it's Trigger's broom.
It's Trigger's broom, yeah.
But, it's a philosophical problem, if I remember right.
Yeah. Is it still the same ship? Is it still the same car? So there's an interesting one with the Roadkill are doing at the moment. They are rebuilding the General Mayhem with a motorhome 440, which they did back in series 2, I think. It was like episode 22, 23, and they're up to 100 or so now. So, yeah, it was well back in the early couple of series. They made the General Mayhem, and they put a motorhome 440 engine into it, and then it was actually bought off Freiberger by the company, effectively. Motor Trend bought it, and then they did a Hellcat swap, and they put a Hellcat engine and drivetrain and everything else inside.
I do think the Hellcat kind of spoiled it.
It's going back.
Yeah, no, I heard that one. It's going back to a motorhome 440.
It's going back to not the
same one,
because that ended up in a Dart and a few other places apparently. But it's going back to
the engine's just doing laps between their fleet.
It's going into a motor. Taking a motorhome 440 that needed a bit of love, unfortunately. So it's probably going to get stroked out, which is going to be even better. But the question that Freiberger posed was, if he puts a stroker kit on, is it still a motorhome 440? It's like, well, yes, I would say it is still a motorhome 440.
Sorry, I've got more pictures I'm going to be throwing up in a second. I'm just waiting for them to upload.
Okay. Well, just put it back onto
may as well for now.
Your thing.
I can just put that back for a minute.
There you go. Yeah, so he was talking about whether or not if you change the block. Well, it wasn't even changing the block. If you change the engine away from being 440 cubic inches, is it still a motorhome 440? And I said yes, because it's still a 440 block. Even if you put a stroker kit on it with different pistons, rods, and crank, it's still a motorhome 440 effectively. So yes, I think the spirit of the Mayhem is still very much there.
So there's another one from inside the car now. that shows one of the other main pieces of like lateral strength we put in, which is the fairly beefy bar across
between
underneath the windscreen.
A-pillars in inverted commas. That is a 50mm piece of engineering steel which does not bend.
Yeah.
We tried. I was hoping that was the right grade steel to use in the metal bender, because you can basically go with 45mm 2.6 wall and 50mm 2mm wall tube for the cage. So I originally started using the 50mm, and I tried to get that from Berkshire Metals. Unfortunately, they only had this 50mm stuff, and when we put it in the tube bender down at ignition, it just folded. It folded like
kinked,
Superman on laundry day. It
Yeah.
has absolutely no bend. It just goes and bends like this and just collapses in.
Yeah, it doesn't form nice bends. It just what is it? Is it kinking or kneeing? I think they
Yeah,
call it.
it just knees all the way in, and just it's obviously when you bend it, you get some ovaling, but instead of sort of just squeezing down a little bit, this was basically going down to here. It was very much twice as wide as it was tall, which is not what you want in a circle. At the end of the day, that's a pretty poor choice of circle. So that's in across the front, and it's a little bit too big, but at the same time it's also phenomenally strong in compression, as we've discovered.
Heather was very excited to see their old Momo in the car.
Yes,
I thought that came out. I thought that was one of the bits that we got with the chassis.
So that Momo is from Riggs. That's his original shirt button from his turbocharged Rally, which is absolutely horrendous in a car that size. You end up like this, steering it around, but it actually fits nicely in this, and Riggs gave it to Heather at some point or other, and then Heather passed it on. Matthew said it hates that it looks good in profile.
Honestly, I genuinely think it's a really good profile. Like I can kind of, if I squint and I just imagine bodywork wrapped on a silhouette of that in solid form with a shell on it.
So
you know what, that is good looking.
I have been trying to explain this body shell to Chris for 2 years before certainly 18 months before I put the roll cage on, and then he was stuck in Wales when I built the roll cage, so all he saw was Facebook Live kind of poking around looking at it, and it wasn't until he came back and actually saw it and went, oh yeah, okay.
I'll be honest, with just the cage,
the cage, it didn't quite
look really
right.
weird. It looked too tall.
Yeah,
it looked way too tall. But as soon as we started building out the rear haunches and the side pods and everything, it really started coming together as like an overall shape.
Yeah. So.
And what I'm really hoping, right, the main thing I'm hoping for with this is that it follows the same rules as aircraft, which is basically in aircraft and aerodynamics. To some extent, if it looks right, it's probably okay.
Yeah.
So quite how Blom and Voss planes fly, but
well, they're the antithesis. They're
the exception.
They're the exception to the rule. If it looks like it should never possibly be able to fly, then it probably will, because somebody did physics. But yeah, if it looks right, it should. Like the ones that had stacks on stacks on stacks on stacks of wings, well, that was clearly never going to fly, which is why it didn't. But yeah, I'm hopeful. The only thing that remains to work out at the moment is basically this sort of, if you're in the driver's seat, it's the elbow rest. It's where that body line comes along and how high that body line sits, and to still allow you to see things.
Oh please.
Yes.
As the chassis used to be. Yeah.
Yeah, there is. You see, Lander's got a good picture.
Oh no, sorry, going to desk. Wrong one.
Yeah.
Apologies, 2 seconds. Ta-da!
Yeah, so that is from some time ago.
So to be fair, that is missing like the back quarter. Give or take, what would now be the back third, obviously because we've extended it, but that's roughly from.
And that's only because it's occluded by the garage.
Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't even tell you whether or not that has anything else on it.
No, that's before we touched anything apart from the the most we'll have done at that point is the new rear stays that the engine sat on.
That is supposedly from the March 2018.
Sorry, I just saw winged ones of the Blom and Voss. Their ugliness repels the ground. Love it.
They're just repulsed by Earth.
Yeah. Yeah, it does kind of look like Chris is just floating above the car in that picture. with it being such a wide angle, it does look quite good. But yeah, seeing the old chassis, you can see where some of the old kind of ties across the middle. There's just gaps underneath the floor. Actually, no, I have just worked out what that view is. That view in that picture, is it upside down? And that took me way too long to realise. So that gap across the front firewall, where the two square plates are still
right in the corner of the pit. Yeah, that's where the transmission.
That's where the transmission would have sat through, and we've joined that and made it a solid piece. And again, I think that is also in thick wall.
That's 3mm now as well.
3mm wall. So the floor is definitely way tougher than it originally was, because it only had three. Well, no, it only the tub itself, where the passenger cell is, only had one complete cross member going through it, and that's the one that you can see just to the left of Sam's elbow in that one. So yeah, where that pointer is. So that was the original cross piece in the whole of the cockpit area, because the front
that's the only thing that went side to side.
That's the only one that went side to side. And then if you go slightly further back on that tunnel, just to where I think that must be Chris's. Yeah, there is a tiny little 1/2-inch brace across, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's the entire compressional support at floor level in the original chassis. So we've added
a lot.
Three additional edge-to-edge supports across there. So I'm pretty
think that's Chris.
I'm pretty secure. Yeah, I think that's Chris's right hand. That's
old garage jumper that died a death last year.
No, died a death well before that.
Really?
That jumper isn't even my jumper. That is my dad's jumper. That is an old Nike jumper that I had. You've noticed in some of the early videos, it used to be black. It's been washed enough that it's a kind of reddy brown. That's how old it is. And I would comfortably say that jumper was probably 20 some odd years old before I got it, so minimum.
I'll be honest, that does look a bit weird with the windscreen alone in.
Yes.
But
yeah,
I still like it.
So from there, the major bits that are missing on that picture is the splitter assembly out the front.
Yeah.
And that's going to get a little bit of adjustment from Winged One has mentioned us a couple of extra
kind of
valued,
splitter,
good front splitter pieces to add and to change, so they're going to get done.
Yeah, to be clear, all of these photos that I've put up in the last few minutes, I think I took these in like September, October-ish kind of time.
Yeah, something.
So they're all a bit old.
Right now, it definitely has nothing in it. It's on the split and has absolutely nothing inside, but hopefully by...
It must be September because the fig tree's still in.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean...
I'm not going to question that. I'll just take that. September.
Oh, well, the TT's there as well.
Oh, good point, yeah.
Yeah, and the TT went...
just after Chris came back.
Yeah.
Like within a week.
Yeah, so that would have been September-ish, give or take. So
I thought we were still pulling the loop out of the TT for a while.
Yeah, do you want to go through some CAD? I'm going to have to go and use...
there's really no more CAD I can do to
biological.
Wow. I can point at bits of the model, but that's kind of it.
We could just open your Lego aid.
Oh yeah, just start building Aid's McLaren Senna Lego kit. I'll just steal a future stream off you, mate. No big deal. Sorry for deafening everyone. I don't really know what to talk about, to be honest. Aid's been doing all the chatting, and I've just completely lost the ability to just like
pip and pip
randomly talk about stuff.
What if I could do pip and pip and pip?
What, just a tunnel of pictures and pictures and pictures? You can do it with OBS quite easily. You can just feed an input back into itself. I'm not sure if you can do it on that lot. Yeah, I'd love to show you guys a bit more working on that intercooler duct, but as I was saying earlier, there's really no more like modelling and shaping I can do on it until I've been out to the car and offered the intercooler up and tried and like measured the angle offsets and stuff between them, because now what I really need to do is I need to take the distance from one corner of this to one of the matching corners on the inlet throat, find what the length is, and then rotate the front of it around that point at the right length to the right angles, and I just don't have the data to do that. So the nice thing is, at least I'm in a place now where I'm like, we can do that, like everything is set up now. I've got the model in such a way that if we go out and get those dimensions, I can plug stuff in, and I know now that I can just plug that stuff in and get the resulting... oh yeah, Winged One is modelling a fairly realistic tank.
Oh wow.
At the minute.
Is that your old picnic bench, Rive? I'm not sure it is. I'm
It
fairly
might be the
certain.
other picnic bench.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain Rifle's old picnic bench is in the back garden as an actual eating picnic bench, but I could be wrong. Actually, no, I think Rive's one has made it into the front now and is our table. Yes, sorry, at the moment, Rive's one is in the table. When we took that picture, we didn't have your picnic bench. So it's definitely not your picnic bench. But your picnic bench is now the outdoor workbench for the garage. And the one that has the chassis
Is that the one
on
that's
it.
out front?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we work on that one a lot.
Table when you two have
Yeah.
forgotten to eat.
Yeah, it's our set,
Well,
it's our presenting table.
Definitionally, it's the lunch table when we've remembered to eat.
Mm.
It's the work table when we've forgotten to eat.
Yes, definitely.
Matthew's inviting me to talk about torque converters. Oh, don't. I could talk about torque converters forever and how magical they are, but I just bore everyone. Like everyone thinks torque converters are terrible. I'm like, no, Christian von Koenigsegg likes torque converters. That's enough for me. I mean, I liked them before he blessed them, but
See, I know you told me I'd hate it, but I do kind of want to try fixing the fins. Like, I
Thing
watched
is, like-
one GIF, and
Yeah.
it would be a
was
very
kind of
satisfying thing to just sort of sit and
Yes.
plod away at. Like anyone
Yeah.
who enjoys playing Stardew Valley will ship our interviews to
Yes.
you, and you can just straighten out all the fins
Yeah,
for
you
us.
just
Explain how a
basically just
CVT
gotta-
works, right? No, because they don't.
Work is a strong word.
How they ought to work in theory in
Yeah.
a world of unlimited,
So-
they're made of sand.
of infinite friction
They're made of-
coefficients and
they're made of
arbitrarily strong
sand.
materials.
Yeah, so there is a problem with fixing the fins on these intercoolers, and they're not actually full width. They're lots and lots of tiny little strips that are
Oh,
woven.
right, so you can't
So
even
when
just
they-
run something through because you'll snag on
Nope.
some of them.
So I've just-
Gareth,
I've
you're
just-
wrong. Sorry. Dual clutch transmission's better than torque converters. Nope.
Yeah, you can just barely kind of straighten these, but wow.
You can
They-
straighten like the outermost layer, and that's
Oh
kind
no,
of.
the outermost
kind of
layer
it,
is the only
yeah.
one that needs straightening.
Oh, of
but
course,
it's-
because
But because well done. But because it's a tiny little thin piece, when you twist it at all, it breaks off.
it's
So
probably honestly that's probably a win.
for some of the ones that are really, really
Yeah.
badly bent over, yes, it probably is. But yeah, this is this is a boring live stream. I'll do it. God help me, I'll do it. I will sit here and talk rubbish and
Yeah.
try and tidy all of these fins up. But you do not want to watch me do that right now. That's for another boring time when we don't have any
See,
work.
everyone in chat's wrong. Even the race car aficionado's wrong right now. I mean, if I could swap out my 3-speed automatic for a 3-speed dual clutch, I would be sad. I will take a torque converter in front of my transmission all day long, rather than a clutch and like a sequential double. A double clutch and everything, because I have 3 speeds. Because I've got 3 ratios. My first gear in the Rover reaches to 60 mile an hour.
It's also really bad.
If I had to launch at 1-to-1 gear ratio through the torque converter, it would be horrendous. It's bad enough as it is when I get torque multiplier through it,
Yeah.
acting as like a 1.5 gear.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah, I mean, if I've got a 3-speed, I'm losing anyway. Not wrong.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is one thing. Should I talk about the ZF project? I don't know. Is
We'll
that
come
a
on
bit
to
too high in the sky?
We'll come on
Yeah.
to that. I mean, we're nearly 2 hours deep. That's a much bigger conversation than just
Not
now.
wrong.
Same as building the Senna.
Yes.
I have got a Lego Senna over here
I genuinely think you should just stream that on its
to
own.
build at some point,
Yeah.
which I will probably put on a stream of just me trying to build this.
Yeah, just stick the overhead on and just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be fine. It will just be a stream of me going, so, Lego, it's the best. And nolling. So much nolling.
Always be nolling. Rule 4.
Always be nolling.
When you've got all of your tools
Line
and
everything
parts,
up
everything,
and you do
you
it and
sort
you
of
can see everything.
lay everything out, so nothing is on top of anything else.
Best.
It's very satisfying.
So satisfying.
Yeah.
You can't really do that with knitting, unfortunately.
You could if you tried really, really hard, but you don't do it like super quick.
Yeah.
It might not be worth doing.
No.
Yeah. I mean, you could still
You
like
can
knoll
start
on your
with-
knitting accessories, your needles, and
Hang on, wait, 1 second.
whatever else
You're
is
talking
involved
about
in knitting.
knolling with knitting.
Yes.
And that fundamentally requires 2 knitting needles and a bunch of...
You underestimate
A bu-
knitting
no,
if
no,
you
hang
think
on,
it
wait.
needs 2 needles.
a bunch of wool in a very orderly fashion. That's called knitting. Like fundamentally, you are knolling.
Oh, right, I get
by
you.
virtue-
By ordering the wool
By
into a
virtue-
single contiguous sheet.
By
you are doing the
virtue
knitting,
of
yeah.
knitting something, you are knolling because you're putting it in a phenomenally ordered pattern. That is, you could just call it knolling with string, and you are knitting. But yes,
It's more that
Yeah,
there
so-
wouldn't be that many things. Like, I like
but it doesn't have to be many things. It just has to be ordered.
The
You put your knife and
ambulance
fork on the
one's really
table. You just knolled. Plate, knife, fork, spoon, mug. Everything is in its right place. That's all you need. Forks to one side, knives separated. You can't put a knife and fork together. Madness. Oh. Anyway,
You done?
less talking about
So tell you,
cutlery etiquette.
do you know what's good about torque converter automatics, or rather planetary gear set automatics, that you will never do in a DCT?
Yeah.
You can have 10 ratios without the gearbox being this long to have 10 sets of
You
gears
could do
in
that
it.
with a CVT.
Okay, you can have 10 ratios
Without
and
the
put more than
sadness.
50 horsepower through
Without
it
the
without it.
sadness, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember my uncle got a CVT Audi A4 when they
Oh,
came
God.
out. And he did a lot of miles. He once put 100,000 miles on an Audi 100 in 12 months. It was a company car, and they took it back off him after 12 months. And they went, "You've gone over the mileage that we have to give you a new car." So they gave him another car. It's a pretty good way. How do you always get a new car every
drive
year?
it
Drive
way over
100,000
how-
miles around Europe every single year. So yeah, and he had a CVT, and it did not last. It had all kinds of problems. It was really good when it was brand new. It was really good, but it fell off a cliff. It should have been pushed.
It's
off
the
a
thing
cliff.
with so many like mechanical things, isn't it? Is how good something is when it's new is a totally like it almost doesn't matter because most things aren't new for most of their lives. Like things only new for a very short amount of time.
It's how they wear. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's how good is it when it's perfect, and how good is it when it is 80% perfect.
Yeah, what's it like when it's got 250,000 miles on it?
Exactly, and I don't think any CVT gearbox will, well, certainly not those ones, will ever have 250,000 miles on it. At least I certainly don't want to drive one.
The only
No.
CVT that I would trust to last a really, really long time, and this is kind of in a sort of theoretical sense, is a straight-through transmission that has only a torque converter in it with a variable pitch stator. That's the only thing that I can imagine working very, very long term
I mean,
as
that's,
a CVT.
That's not as I was going to say. That's not a CVT.
It is.
Is it classed as a CVT with a
Like,
variable
well,
pitch?
it has a variable gear ratio. By varying the pitch, you change the slip
Suppose,
ratio,
yeah.
you change the gear ratio.
I mean, that's not the type that I'm talking about.
no, obviously,
I'm
but
talking
that,
about
as I
the
said, like that's the only way I can
quad-cone
imagine
belt
building a high mile, like a long-lasting CVT is via
Yeah.
that approach. Like all the toroidal ones, all the belt ones. Like the belt ones, probably if you put a small enough amount of power through them and you made them big, you could make it work. But it's like,
because that's basically how the Audi ones worked.
well, as I said, small enough power, big enough transmission, but you start getting silly with how big it has to be to hold it.
Yeah, just no. DCT better than CVT.
Take the
Every
Christian
day.
von Koenigsegg approach.
Yeah.
1-to-1. Put a 1 megawatt engine on the front of it.
Yes!
And a torque converter.
Oh,
Yeah, you're done.
we should start again, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, all we need is a
need-
monstrous 1,000 horsepower twin turbo V8
Smaller than
on the
1,000.
front. The Prius transaxle, I think, technically does count as a CVT.
Yes,
That's
it
actually really
does.
clever, to be
Yeah.
fair, and that has no slipping parts.
I'm impressed that Subaru CVT has a 10-year, 100,000 mile warranty. However, I wouldn't trust it to last more than 100,000 miles. I would very much. Actually, is that 10-year, 100,000
Yeah, which one
miles?
runs out
Which one?
first?
Yeah,
Yeah.
which one runs out first? Because
Yeah, is it if you get to 100,000 wrecked?
yeah, it's.
Or is it the longer of the
I
two?
look at that and say it's a 100,000 mile, and it needs to be redone, and conveniently, or 120,000 is when they break.
Yeah, like they're just super precision engineered to
Yeah.
brake precisely over the limit. I think the Prius transaxle, if
does.
you're talking about the one off the Mark III,
Yeah,
where the motor
the Prius.
the
is-
motor drives
it
a
is-
different. It drives like one of the planetary rings in the
Yeah.
transmission.
The Prius one is a CVT.
Yeah,
by
it's also
definition.
considered the only good CVT.
Yes, because it has very little power going through it.
No, it's not that. There's no slipping parts. There's no like friction phases like a toroidal CVT or a belt one where you're relying on friction on a
okay.
wear part.
Huh.
It's a planetary gear set, and by feeding torque into one part, I did watch a video a while ago on how it works, and I don't understand it, but it's very
Insert
clever.
power, magic, drive.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Good
by driving the engine and the electric sections at different speeds, effectively, and by pulling torque out or pushing torque in through the motor.
Oh, okay.
It changes the other moving parts of the transmission. Like it tweaks the ratio between the engine and the output or something.
Okay, that wasn't what I thought you meant by. But yeah, I know the Prius is classed as a CVT gearbox, so yeah.
It actually for running the engine at one specific RPM.
Yes.
By changing the motor RPM, you arbitrarily change the gear ratio. It's very clever.
Unnecessarily complicated, but
well, no.
well done.
The thing is, actually, it really isn't. The number of parts in it is quite small.
Really?
It's a simple system. It's complicated to like get your head around.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't. It's not like any regular gear system.
That's
like
any planetary differential.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a normal CVT. You go big pulley, little pulley, belt,
cardboard
done.
box.
Yeah. And you just go, you change the size of one pulley by, you've got your cone and you allow the belt to sit somewhere different. That changes your ratio.
Yes.
The Prius one is way more, way less intuitive than that, but really not that complex mechanically.
Yeah.
Very clever. I'd recommend, there was a video I found on it a little while ago, I'd recommend going on YouTube and searching for, how does Prius CVT work? Because yeah, genuinely really cool. I quite enjoyed watching it.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's, well, hopefully in the next couple of weeks we should get some PLA and we can get these printed up, the intakes printed up, and our new versions of these, which we'll have back in, and we can check these over on another live stream and make sure that they work, which would be quite cool. We can get that hopefully aligned, I suppose, and get that built ready to go back in. The shroud, because really there's not actually that much left to do on the car before we put everything back on again, and then put the wiring back in, put the harness in. Sorry, not the harness. Put the ECU back in, and we try and get it to start working, because we now have brakes, clutch, fuel, water all sewn up. Like that all fits and works. Actually, bar blocking off one of the holes on the vent tube on the radiator.
Oh yeah, true.
We need to seal a couple of those up, but that shouldn't be too much. Certainly not for a test.
I think Winged One's right. I'm pretty sure I did actually bump into it in his Discord server, in the Pals channel. It was linked in there. I just tried looking for it real quick and couldn't find it, but Discord search doesn't search the YouTube titles, it only searches the text. So
okay.
I couldn't dig it up in a hurry. I was hoping to drop it in YouTube chat here, but I'm kind of still looking.
Yeah. So all being well, we should be able to get that back together sooner rather than later. We might actually do if we just do a big time lapse of putting the car all back together, and we record that on the little one, we can play that through here on a live stream and just talk over the top of it as we go, and that'll probably be quite an interesting one, just watching us put everything back together. I've worked out the last time I did it, I think it took me about 40 minutes to rebuild the front suspension, about the same amount of time to rebuild the rear trailing arms and suspension and wheels and brakes and everything else. Obviously it'll be a bit longer because we're going to need some more stuff. The engine is obviously the hardest thing to get in on your own.
I always find it weird, like when we're building the car up and taking it apart, it feels like everything takes ages.
Yeah.
And then we realise that we've just completely deleted the front suspension and braking system of an entire car.
Yeah.
And like, actually, really quick compared to just about anything else ever.
Pulling the suspension off,
yeah,
you can strip every single suspension component, wheels, hubs, brakes, everything back to like chassis level, front and rear, in probably 20 minutes with two people.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, which is not good enough if you're doing
and a rattle gun.
Yeah, not good enough if you're at Le Mans, granted.
No,
but
it's not bad.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, I feel like if we snap a spring or something at track, like in the really unlikely scenario where we have spares, right? If we break anything on track, we could actually swap stuff very feasibly, like on the spot.
Yeah, without too much problem. If we had some spare, we could throw new things in. The main ones that we wouldn't be able to do are arms, suspension arms, trailing arms.
Only really the trailing arms. Like everything else, we could conceivably just
if we had rose joints, they would be dead easy to just pop up, lift, done. Especially because you can lift 3 corners of the car off the ground with 1 jack.
Yeah, the car's so stiff that you can pick up any corner of it and the whole rest of it comes up with. There's no twist through it or anything.
Yes,
so.
you're right. You're right. At Le Mans, you do have more mechanics.
Yeah.
So actually,
me and Adrian at each corner would be quite quick.
Yeah, you can probably do that. But yeah, it's surprisingly quick to pull the whole front end apart. The front end comes apart fairly quickly. The back end is difficult because even having removed a couple of kilos from each of those trailing arms by taking,
so heavy.
They are so unbelievably heavy, and especially if you don't take the caliper and the disc off, if you're going for speed, I'll just take the whole unit out. It is crippling. Putting it in is next to impossible on your own.
Yeah,
you've
especially
got to
because
prop it and get it right, and then try and throw 1 bolt in, and then you're fine. But getting to that position, it's 10-15 minutes just on your own, getting everything ready. Horrible. So yeah, definitely a 2-person job. The engine can be done on its own, but trying to sort of finagle
you've got to
it,
move the stand a bit, get off the stand, move to the engine, shuffle it around a little bit, go to the stand, move it around a bit. And
it would be dead easy if we had a proper flat floor, because you could just have it out
pull the
ready.
crane around a bit or something. Yeah.
Well, you could move the crane with the engine. You could be on the engine in the engine bay, having turned it so that it fits out through the cage, and you could push it back, and there'd be sufficiently little friction on the wheels that just swinging the engine away would
move the crane.
Essentially drag the crane. Effectively, you're dragging it behind the engine.
That's actually what we did when we were pulling the 6-pot for the SD1 off of the lorry it was in.
Yeah.
The engine swung on the crane and just backed the crane away from the lorry. And then when it swung back out, it didn't hit the lorry, which was good.
Which was very good, yeah, for both the engine and the lorry. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting one to do.
Oh, don't say that. Age is going to fanboy even harder over Audi now.
That's what he's saying. Just change everything. But yeah, basically just unbolt it and just send it away.
Yeah, read the last one as well, though, which is the punchline. That's what I was saying. You needed to not hear.
What's that? Audi developed another thing that got banned? No, surely not. Touring cars.
Quattro touring cars. Yeah, boy.
Let's not even talk about the 90-kilo weight penalty. It's just like, oh, you're doing so well, we're just going to put a 2nd person in, basically. It's ridiculous, but never mind. Even having
Audi
the weight
fan. Bitter Audi fan.
I think it's justifiable.
It's fair, honestly.
If you have something that is within the rules, either change the rules or don't just go, oh, you're so good. They never penalised BMW when BMW were wiping the floor with everybody.
Yeah, that's one thing I always find interesting. It seems weird that some teams get picked on.
Especially when it's game changing. They're just like, the rules say you can do it. This is not the Celica GT4 Rally restrictor plate.
Now, to be fair, in that case, there was no evidence they were cheating.
There was absolutely no evidence.
Hang on. Also, in Rally, there's not really any, oh, you're doing too well, let's derate you. Like, in most other sports, there's like, no, this has to be... Like, Rally is amazing fun to watch whatever you do.
Yes.
Most other, like, circuit racing, if you've got one team, like Mercedes the last couple... I don't know what the history's been, like 2021 or 2020 F1, right? But you know how for a little while, Mercedes was just dominant.
They have actually been doing quite well. But then when Ferrari were just procedurally going through and just winning everything, Ferrari never got penalised.
But that's my point, right? It's boring. In circuit racing, it's boring when one team is dominant. So they have to derate stuff and like mess with everything.
And then the FIA come in and
let
the F
Ferrari do whatever.
The F stands for Ferrari.
Yeah.
I still think it's criminal that Ferrari are paid to be in F1.
Am I about to get told off for saying Ferrari never gets penalised, or is is he about to dispute the meme or recite the meme? I don't know.
They do get penalised from time to time, and people go, "Oh my god, it actually happened!" Like it does definitely happen, but for the number of times it happened.
Apparently, the 2005 season was a problem. Is that when they got all of history's Ferrari penalties dumped into 1 year?
Yeah.
And then like since then they just go, "No, you've paid your price. It's fine. Go do what you want."
Yeah. Essentially, they were penalised in 2005, and they went, "Okay, well, we'll just leave."
Oh. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they get, bearing in mind that every other team spends millions of dollars, millions of pounds, whatever your currency of choice is, to compete in F1, and Ferrari are paid 50 million a season to turn up with a car that they also spend a couple of $100 million developing, same as everybody else. But they also have a massive financial incentive to just turn up. So when they say, oh, we're going to make it so that it's cheaper for every team, well, okay, you're just making it a net zero for Ferrari, because They're being paid 50 million to turn up. And if you're going to... yeah. There's a reason that that meme exists. Yeah, basically that. But it just... Yeah, that annoys me. And if you're doing well... and you're going to penalise the whole team, you have to do it when everybody is doing well, not just when certain people
definitionally,
are doing
not everyone can... Oh, sorry, I get what you mean. Yeah, everyone can be doing well at once, but you have to treat people evenly.
Yes, you have to. You can't just go, oh, well, it's okay because Ferrari have 7 titles.
Williams and McLaren also get a big bonus. So.
Yes, but they argued for it on the basis that Ferrari get an enormous, enormous windfall to compete.
Bitter Audi fan.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do the small text underneath, so...
Yes. Basically that.
I made the best call I could.
No, I appreciate it. It is
to be fair,
appreciated.
it's not so much that I'm a bitter Audi fan, it's that I like that they win despite the fact that they get kicked down for being good. see Le Mans, see DTM, see touring cars. Yeah, many times. This is not a one-off thing that Audi have gone, well, screw it then.
Meanwhile, in rally, just no one cares, right? Because rally is always so entertaining. You can build anything in rally, and the only reason it'll get banned is if it kills people.
Yeah,
and then maybe an entire series gets shut down.
Yeah, I was going to say
whatever. It doesn't matter how dominant you are.
Go for it. The reason Audi left rallying was because the entire thing they were joining into was cancelled because everybody was too good for safety.
I wonder if there's an element there, though. Is this a bit like Land Rover? Oh, we only left the Camel Trophy because it wasn't hard enough anymore. It's like, is that the case?
Is it though?
Or did you just not really feel like you... Because like other cars
really
caught up with
of
the...
winning?
Yeah, because other cars caught up with the Quattro in rally, which in fairness, like they were quite new to that. I'm not going to expect them to remain dominant forever.
No, absolutely.
They have one big good idea and they get a massive advantage off it, and then everyone else is like, well, we know a lot of other things about rally that we can apply, and we're also going to take that idea. And then obviously it starts to come back around.
Even when everybody else came to the four-wheel drive party, Audi was still winning because they were still a year ahead of everybody as they stepped along, and it gradually caught up, and they went, oh, we'll just do Group... Oh, Group E's cancelled. Oh, well.
Yeah, it's more that they didn't bother sticking around after that.
No.
We've
had our fun, and we don't want to downgrade, because, I mean, it's got to be really annoying when you know you can do something so incredibly, and they're like, oh yeah, we're not allowed to do it quite as well anymore because it was literally unsafe. And you have to rein everything in and go, oh god, well, if we make it really good again, they're just going to rein it in. And it's what happens in Formula 1 to a good degree. It's why we don't have turbo V8s, V10s and V12s anymore, because they were so unbelievably quick. It was getting dangerous.
To be fair, like they're now faster than ever.
Yeah,
WRC
exactly.
is now faster than Group B ever was. It's not like it follows a thing, like it's sort of doing this and just slowly going up.
Safety has to kind of keep pace with it as well, and
I think
I'm not against safety.
Yeah,
you know, Halo does make the cars look a bit dumb, but at the same time,
I quite like the Halo.
When you crash through a barrier, as Grosjean did,
yes,
I
think.
Halo,
is that when he took a tyre to the head?
Halo saved his life. No, he went through the barrier, and the barrier
sorry,
just
someone who took a tyre to the head that prompted the Halo.
Yeah,
maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, and then
I'll be honest though,
he went into a wall. Well, not a wall. He went into an Armco barrier, and basically the Halo stopped him being sliced off at the neck.
Yeah, genuinely though, I prefer the aero screen. I like the Halo.
Yes.
I prefer the aero screen.
Yeah, the aero screen was quite nice. Although, by the same token, they've managed to work aero into the Halo as well, and just make it an extra fixative point for wings. No, it's my wing mirrors. It's my wing mirrors, said Ferrari.
Well, I mean, do you want to have a quick read about Audi's DPFs?
Yeah. Yes. Audi's Le Mans DPFs are amazing. Like, it's fine. You didn't say we couldn't do it. Well, I mean, now we're saying that you couldn't do it. This is what's his name?
Also
from NASCAR.
Smokey Eunuch.
Smokey Eunuch.
Yeah,
yes.
you said how big my fuel tank could be, but you didn't say.
You didn't tell me how long the line could be.
Yeah.
And my favourite point is still he got pulled up on 20 or 19 or 20 different infractions on his car, and they took the fuel tank out of his car, and he basically went, screw you, I'm just going to take my car and go home, got in, started it up.
And just drove it off on what was in the fuel line.
Yeah, and drove it away and went, better make that one more infraction, and peeled off into the Disney line.
Yeah.
Just amazing work.
Oh, it was Massa getting hit in the head with a spring, was it? Not a tyre. I thought someone caught a tyre to the head, but... either way. Yeah, Era Screen's cool. There's a lot of bits of Indy cars I actually think look better on Formula One.
As Rive says, safety is hard.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
There's a lot of things.
It's really easy to just turn a turbo up to a bigger number, and go. Yeah, it's fine. The engine will only last one race. You can make a car arbitrarily fast. At the extreme end, you can go top fuel.
Williams.
Right, yeah.
If it doesn't disintegrate as it crosses the finish line.
I thought that was a Colin Chapmanism. Ideally, the whole car disintegrates as you cross the finish line.
I thought it was Williams.
Like the point.
Either way,
holds, yeah.
The point still holds of if your car crosses the finish line and continues to remain in a single piece.
Yeah. If it survives the parade lap, it was too heavy.
It has been too well built, and you could have saved weight.
Yeah.
Not wrong.
It's
a tricky one to manage.
It's a dangerous line to go down.
Yeah, wasn't it Renault's engines that didn't even make it that far for an entire season with Red Bull, and then Toro Rosso, and they swapped back. I think it was the Renault engines, and they just kept on nuking themselves kind of halfway through a lap.
Nice.
Considering I have so much oil in the house, I should really
stop
this chair squeaking. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear the squeak.
I can, and it bugs me. Was there actually about a squeaky chair?
Yeah, will I fix it before next time?
You're probably just not going to fix it.
I'll definitely fix it. I don't know if I'll fix it before the next time I use the chair, though.
You can also decide you got no chance to just go for glory runs down Mulsanne. I'm trying to remember. I think, was it in the late 90s or early 2000s? One of the Williams drivers was a fair way down on first place. I think it was Williams anyway. I can't actually even remember who it was.
It's possible.
I feel like it was a British driver.
Which would be Williams at that point, because basically nobody... Although Jensen maybe could have been BAR, early 2000s. It would have been Button.
Can't remember. I think it was pre-Button. In any case, basically it was back when the driver still had control over the boost pressure of the car, and basically went for a glory lap in the rain at Silverstone, and the engine, if I remember right, blew up on the parade lap because he turned the wick up so hard for like this last desperate sprint to try and get first. He got first, engine exploded in the parade lap. It was like, yes, perfect.
Yeah.
It was exactly strong enough to do the job.
Yeah.
That was fun. Annoyingly, it was much more satisfying to read about at the time because obviously it had all the details. I'm obviously only catching a couple of little bits and pieces that have stuck in my brain, but it was a really fun one. Fix it live on a fix what of the
chair.
Oh, okay.
My problem solving right now is, well, in the moment I'm just going to stop doing it. I'm not going to stop. I might be able to lock it out maybe if I...
Force yourself to stop, yeah.
I can lock it. And then I can't tip back, and it's not quite as comfortable, but yeah. So, successfully CAD'd, more than anything.
Yeah.
All being well, probably not going to be this coming week we'll get these printed, because even this takes 17 hours to print.
To be fair,
imagine
that's
probably going to take a similar length of time just because of how big it is, albeit it's less complicated.
So this took a long time to print because I was printing it with a really, really thin layer height because of how shallow that angle is.
Yes.
I mean, not that I can change the layer height by like a factor of 4.
Yeah, exactly.
But I can more than double the layer height from what this was.
There's a little bit of tweaking to do, but yeah. I mean, it's to be fair, the finish on it is pretty good.
Honestly, I'd say it's ready to go.
It's a very, very light sand. It is starting to just peel a bit, but I suspect that's at least in part because we've been flexing it and handling it and actually delaminating a touch. But
which, in fairness, is probably because the wall is quite thin. If the wall, because the wall, it's not thickness as however many mil that way. Through the narrowest section, it's a couple of mils that way, which means that as it's going over, it's coming down to like barely even a mil in places.
Yeah, it probably wants just a little bit more adding on the inside. There is probably where it's worse.
So that one actually is where the overhang is too much because it's printing in a circle. It's printing a layer like here, and then it's trying to print inside that radius.
So it needs to go.
So it's just. Yeah. It's just surface tensioning its way in a bit. That's
easy enough that we can sand that back and fill it.
Yeah, I mean, if you even want to, there's not really much need to, but you could.
But it'll be all right. So we need to get 2 of those printed up in the next couple of weeks. 2 of the inlets printed up in the next couple of weeks. That will be good. We can get those on and tested up on the car. Hopefully we can also get the car rebuilt in the next, maybe Easter weekend or something like that. That's what...
I genuinely don't know when Easter is.
Not this weekend, not the weekend after that, the weekend after that.
Yeah, why not?
But
Yeah.
that means basically we've got to get all the welding done underneath the car.
Well, I think we've done pretty much all of that now.
It's
I'm not...
so close. It just needs, once again, it needs going over and looking and checking. We've also spent, oh god, we spent what, 2 hours the other day on Sunday making the windscreen fit properly. And just bending and tweaking and flexing and trying to make it work. And that's pretty much there now. The windscreen has a lot better fit than it did. We do also need to get a new
it turns out
windscreen
windscreen surrounds are quite difficult to make.
Yeah, that's not a simple piece to anything. So I'm not looking forward to how that's going to be on the very end.
Yeah.
Because I've got a fairly close-up shot of the windscreen surround. It turns out that this whole like metal frame around it, what we tried to do with just the glass, or what Aid tried to do, because while I was still in lockdown in Wales, he took the windscreen and some sheet metal, and he basically made a 4-piece.
More than 4.
Well, oh, is it more?
The bottom edge.
Tried to just do like a flange that it sat up against.
The bottom edge was 2 pieces.
Yeah.
Where across the flat with an extra piece welded around the bottom. The edges were box section that was cut down into L channel. The top edge was 2 pieces of flat across, and then a third piece, third or fourth piece welded in to try and give it some strength.
Yeah. So you can see the frame that he tried making.
Oh yeah, that's
around here, just like above and forward of the wiring loom there, and then up the side. And then it turned out it wasn't quite the right shape and size to fit between the pillars.
It's flexed
so we've had to
little.
put a
I always knew it wasn't quite going to fit into the pillars. Like, that was a known thing. Like it needs.
So we then had to put a second.
So that's fine.
Piece in on both sides there.
Yeah, that's just some gusseting to kind of brace it together. That's kind of a known problem.
Yeah. This was not a fun piece to make.
Yeah. Basically, that gap had a small piece cut out to try and recess the screen down because we thought that's what was lifting it up a little bit in places and keeping it well away. But actually, it's the edges that are the problem. And the bit across the bottom we had to basically crank on. If Yolanda flicks back to me again.
Yeah.
We had a pair of grips on, and we were basically just cranking on it, trying to lift the edge up.
Yeah,
so it does dish ever so slightly, but it will have a seal across the very top edge that the screen will sit up against, and then the RTV will go around the very bottom edge, and then seal it around that way.
Yeah.
So it'll still seal. It'll still be
it'll be fine. Yeah, it just looked a bit weird for a while because we had the windscreen coming down at like this angle, and then that lower flange was like that underneath it.
Yeah.
So you had this gap between the windscreen and what was supposed to be the frame.
It was like that.
So that's what Aid had to get the grips on.
Rattle
and
a hand in. Basically, I've
yeah.
bent this up so it's more like this. It's very close. It's within about probably 3/8 to 1/4 of an inch from the bottom edge of the glass now, but we got that all done because that was just me angrily bending a piece of metal, so we didn't even film that. But that bit's done, so that's sorted.
There's been a lot of that recently, though, isn't it? It's just stuff that's
it's all just been
really important work that just doesn't make for good video. Like, it's just boring and menial.
Yeah, it's just cranking through and getting stuff done and fixing little bits that we've gone, ooh, we need to do that at some point, but actually we've already done it on camera and we either did it slightly wrong or something's changed marginally that doesn't really warrant showing how we're going to fix it, and we can just go, we fixed it like this, and put that into an episode later. So yeah, it will eventually get there. I hope to start bodywork probably in the next 4 to 6 weeks and start shaping some of that on. So hopefully you'll start seeing episodes with bodywork being shaped, not necessarily fastened onto the car, but starting to work out some of those shapes in the next, I don't know, 6 weeks or so, maybe end of April. We'll try and get an episode out on that, which would be good because that's weather coming in. I think we still need to add a couple of little bits of skeleton in just to hold some parts around the front wings. The back is fine, so that'll be the first part that goes in, but that needs the wheels on so we can measure exactly where the bodywork's going to sit to. One of the parts for the SVA is any body panel that has an edge to it has to be rounded over, or in the wheel arches has to be completely rounded over as a return, so either in as a 90 degree or rolled further over like that, and I haven't fully worked that one out. I think the way that's going to end up, particularly if we're doing it in steel, which will be a lot easier, is actually wrap some 3 or 4 millimeter steel on the inside edge so it doesn't just fold over and give a really terrible edge, but has a radius to it, because they will test it with a 2.5mm radius tool, and we have to be bigger than that on all of these bits, so it's going to have something inside it just to give it a bit of strength as well whilst it's in there, and some rigidity to it. So that's going to be fun. Not looking forward to that. What else? The big ones at the moment are finish the underside of the floor, get the new floor cut out of the phenolic ply, so it's and sort all the resin out on that. Make sure all of the screw anchors into the floor are done, and then put it all back together again, and that's the big one. So yeah, once we put it all back together, we'll do a stream where we just play the rebuild in one go. We'll null all of the parts properly. Yeah. Lay it all out and just do that, maybe even as just one standalone episode as well, of just all of the parts.
Yeah, just one massive time lapse from high up, low down over the whole car.
Yeah, and just run through
entire build.
And we'll do like a real time stream where we just play it in real time as we go over.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. Yeah, that'd be an interesting one to do. But yeah, in the meantime, thank you all for watching. Thanks. I'm not actually sure how many people we've had on stream, because we did the sensible
thing. I think we peaked
at
18.
We peaked at 18 for about...
That's pretty good. So
we peaked at 18, and then I can't remember what we started talking about, but we started talking about something really boring and went down to 10.
Oh. Well, we peaked at 18. Last week we peaked at 16, so we've got small incremental increases, so I'll take it. Like, subscribers are still going up. We're getting ever closer to... we're nearly at 1,250 subscribers now, and watch time is increasing, so hopefully, maybe we can get YouTube to buy us with... watch time, all of the bodywork panels. That would be cool.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
They're
not getting the logo on it.
Well, it's not YouTube's money.
Worked already.
It's the advertisers' money.
Yeah, exactly. I did find our blip shift plus 5 horsepower sticker that we need to put on somewhere.
Yes.
Put it on the inlet manifold or something, or put it across the intercooler.
Just right
just
across,
right in the
-5
centre.
horsepower of
So yeah, that's the roadmap at the moment as it stands.
I'm gonna have an episode coming up on the Rover because it's getting the head skimmed.
Yes. So there's going to be some stuff out of that.
There's good on that. So because so what I was hoping, actually tomorrow it was supposed to be going into. I think I mentioned this on the stream last week. It was booked in to go to see a man with a beard who understands carburetors and speaks the. He can talk to the machine spirits.
Yeah, he can whisper carburetors. He's a tech
obviously, with the head being blown.
He's a tech marine.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, with the head being blown, that's being called off. But now we're going to have the head skimmed, pick up a few points of compression, and it's going to have the fuel and ignition sorted, and then I just dyno it, and then we've got a whole I've got a properly working SD1. I can rag the knackers off it on a dyno, see what numbers it makes, and hopefully pick up a bit of compression. Because as far as I'm concerned, modern fuel is wizardry compared to what it was designed to run on in the 70s.
4-star.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got way more dent resistance in the fuel.
Delicious lead.
Yeah. And because I noticed actually it likes all of the timing. Just give it all of the ignition timing now, because it's supposed to be that you don't want to go too aggressive because you'll start detting. It's like on 1970s fuel maybe, but right now the distributor's wound all the way forward.
It's got
and there's
all
no
the
signs of thinking.
world,
So it's like it obviously would be happy with more compression.
Yeah, we need to get it up to decimal tenths.
Yeah.
Like, that
basically,
would be cool.
I'll knock a chunk off the bottom of the head, get it up to, I don't know, 10.5 to 1 compression or something. Depends how brave I'm feeling. And
get some more stuff done on there. But yeah, thanks very much for watching. Once again, if you haven't and you've somehow found us but haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Check out shop.pedalbox.show, which Yolanda is about to put up on the screen, and you can buy mugs and t-shirts and hats that I'm not actually wearing anything
Neither
of.
am I.
You've got a Roadkill Zip Tie Drags t-shirt on.
I would like to I would like to pimp some of our friends. Mad Scientist Garage,
yes,
who hasn't made it into chat today, unfortunately, but is a champion.
Yes,
he's a regular viewer.
He's a champion and a lunatic in equal measure. He's doing the Gambler 500 at some point soon in the US, which is going to be mad.
So yeah, you should check him out and buy his stuff.
Yes.
I'm wearing Roadkill, which you probably all know about anyway, so I'm not even going to bother with them.
Yep.
And of course, not too grand.
Yes. Their mugs take a great deal of abuse, as Chris can demonstrate.
With my mug that says, I'm never going to financially recover from this.
This. Yeah.
any of this.
So yeah, check out that. Check out the Patreon, patreon.com/pedalboxshow if you'd like to support us directly. We should probably set up a PayPal so people can just donate directly without us losing fees to people like Patreon. Just like if you want to one-shot something in and go, wow, they should really buy insert thing that we've broken. And you can just dump something in. So I'll probably set something up like that at some point, and get all that sorted. Yeah, I
don't know. Like, if we're going to be off-brand, representing like other car stuff and our buddies, I'm okay with it.
If we're being serious, we have many logos.
PedalBox.
Address.
We've got a PedalBox
logo.
bug
We've got
in
the
the
bug
corner.
up this corner over here.
Yeah, I think we're branded up enough.
I think we are doing okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, we haven't actually got a costume. We haven't got a wardrobe department. Yeah. I do know people.
I feel like if I was sat here with a PedalBox t-shirt and a PedalBox beanie, and you had a PedalBox hoodie on, and we had PedalBox there and PedalBox there, it'd be a bit much.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a bit obnoxious, really.
Yeah, it's like people that go to the track. In fact, it's like people who I've seen at the Nürburgring who turn up in the car park in their Ferrari, wearing a Ferrari jacket,
with a Ferrari bag and their Ferrari shape,
a Ferrari keyring, and then don't go on track. The best people that drive Ferraris at the ring, they drive up in their Ferrari, they park it
in a tracksuit,
and then not wearing an item of actually sometimes a hat because you need a cap. I need a cap because I burn. I'll forgive them that, but if you don't take it on track, why are you even there? Stop posing. But yeah, anyway, we'll try and do a slightly shorter sign-off this time, and maybe we'll get it right.
This is the part where Yola just clicks end stream and boink.
Yeah, I should probably make a sign-off slide for the next one that says thanks for watching, and we can cut to that, and then we're not like The Sopranos where we just cut off mid-sent.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Keep your dick in the ice.
Yeah. Oh well, that would have been a great joke if Yolanda had seen the last episode of The Sopranos, but never mind.
I mean, to be fair, that wasn't a lot of notice.
To be fair, The Sopranos ended, and you would have been like, when was it? 2000? Yeah, you probably about 9, but never mind.
Yola's ready to hover over the end stream button now, so we'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching, and enjoy the show.
Yeah, see you next week.
So the worst part of it is you click end